Hello and welcome to the Headless Giant podcast. Today we have our guest who is the author of the Red Black Dragon Saga, as I called it before. Say hello to everybody.
Hi. I will
So,
disclose my name this time. My name is Michaela. Nice to meet everybody.
that's great. So today, I guess we're going to go into detail into your email. I think we had just stopped when you had met this guy who was. I hear some feedback. Do you have any earphones or anything?
I do probably. Is it my
I
husband's
just hear myself coming through pretty loud.
Oh. Okay, yeah, totally. I'll get him to grab some headphones. No, I don't care. I think the envelopes are more charged, to be honest.
Well, if they die, I'll grab the old ones too and we'll get them charged.
Let's see how this goes. Oh, they're on. Okay.
I don't know where the white ones are.
You good?
These headphones might die at some point, so.
Oh, it's all right.
Is that
We'll
better?
just keep going. Yeah, much better. Much better. So, you were just meeting this warlock in the email, and you started to have a bunch of secrets.
And so I think like what's interesting about that point in the ginger traveler that came up to me, his name was Michael and my name is Michaela, and we actually share the same last name. And so Michaela is the feminine of Michael. And then the other dude who's like the warlock was his name is Keenan, and he was the one like that took me down to the rocks there to drink some cider. Things got crazy. I guess I was explaining how I felt like there was a lot of downloads coming into my mind and stuff like that.
Wasn't a dream.
Also like when you guys were talking yesterday, the part where the elven dragon like lined me up with the moon or whatever, that was actually an LSD trip. It wasn't in a dream, which I found really interesting. How like it switched all of a sudden, like you guys were saying it was a dream, and I was like, interesting that happened, but no, like it was just a trip. Can you pull up Blogger on your phone?
Blogger?
I'm sorry, I'm not super prepared just at this moment. I think I should have the actual document in front of me, because I think that'll help maintain my course thought.
Well, you had a lot of information, and going down to drink the cider, I think that's where we left off. So, if you want to go from there.
So after I kind of like got to know him a little bit, he invited me to visit, like to live with him on Salt Spring Island, and I agreed. I was so excited. Like I was like, without a doubt, just wholeheartedly agreeing to going and living with him. And so when I got to the bank the next day, he was waiting for me and he said, hey, let's go to he had a friend's house that he wanted to go to, right? And so when we got to his friend's house, it was like a normal party night. Things were normal, and he offered me PCP, and unironically the name of it is the street name is Angel Dust. And so I'm really sorry. I'm like splitting my brain right now, and I'm like, I just got to get
this. It's all
this
right. You know, this is
ready for you.
First interview on this, so it's okay to be nervous.
And it's also my first time like ever being on like a stream like this too.
Right. Well, you know, this is a good stream to get started on, because all of my viewers are very, welcoming and open, and all that stuff.
And I
So
wanted to say, like, how you were so
How they started at mid 22.
you were very forgiving with my request, and I thought that that was very very nice of you.
absolutely, yeah.
Sorry.
Do you need help?
Well, I have a question about busking. So when you're out
Yeah.
there playing music for people, I've heard some of your music from your Instagram. Do you get a real sense of like being able to read people from how they're responding to your music? Because I feel like there's a connection there with buskers and the crowds around them that they start to develop sort of a sense for people just by being in crowds and trying to, play music for people.
Definitely. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I have to confirm that.
Oh no, I think you lost connection.
Did it?
Oh, there you are.
Okay, I'm gonna do something quick here because everything I'm trying is not working. Is it still working?
I don't see you anymore. I can still hear you. Hello? If you're there. Hello?
I just had to pull it up.
Oh, okay.
Is it okay?
Yeah, that's good.
I guess I just go. I Okay, I'm so sorry.
That's fine.
Well, my phone is trying to get me to confirm my Google thing, so I'm just gonna do that so that it's finally over with.
Okay. There you are. Phones these days, man.
Oh my gosh, there's so many little pages that I have to get through and stuff. I recently saw like another busker who's gotten a little bit of Instagram fame and stuff like that, and he was talking about how like because he lived on the street and stuff like that, he could like psychoanalyze a person within like 2 seconds because that's like something that it was like a survival thing that I think kind of came from that. And I really related to that. Like, that's what I thought of when you were talking about busking and whatnot. All right, I got my story. Okay. Up. There we go. This is where we want to be. Perfect. Okay. So Keenan gave me the watch, the red dragon, feminine aspect, the downloads. So we go to this place and we got all high. It's a normal party night. The couple we're with, he leave to the neighbor's house for a second. And I've, I guess, already become high on PCP at this point. But he was sitting on the bar stool and he was just like huffing, he was like breathing so heavily. And I kind of like took notice and I was like, yo, what's going on? He seems so like he's doing something over there. So I went and stood beside him on the bar stool. And this is when like things got super crazy for me because I was already experiencing like the weird, just, it really felt like there was like this like strange spiritual world around me that I was like able to see that I had never seen before. And when he was sitting there, he was like, like he was pulling on his heart space, like with all of his effort. And it looked like at a point like his actual, like it actually started to bulge out of his chest, right? So it was like a little mound. His shirt was growing. I was like what the fuck am I looking at? So I poked it, and it was like solid. It was like, it looked like it was like physical. And when it looked like it got to the point that he could no longer pull it out of his chest, he turned his hand and then he placed it on my chest to where I was sitting beside him. And I got this like insane flood of just like ecstatic energy. Like I felt like I got like electrocuted basically. Like I couldn't even fucking move. Like, so I took myself outside to just process what happened to me. And I was sitting on a lawn chair, and I kind of felt like there were these formless, shapeless entities encircling above my head. Like I described them as eel-like because that's the only way I knew how. It was like I could detect them, but they weren't there in a way too. And so I felt like they had an interest in me, like they were looking at me specifically. I felt like what had just, like that heart thing that just happened to me, I felt like why they were there had something to do with that. And then some time passes, I get my shit together, I get up, and
hold on
for
what you're saying is kind of confirming something that I've found in my own experiences in my own life, is that humans have different daimones in the kind of Greek sense. So there's like different spirits that kind of occupy our bodies that exist as sort of like a metaphysical concept. And I think one of the spirits that I've kind of identified is like this idea of the unknown, right? So in the Bible, you read about how Paul went to this temple of the unknown God. They're like, this is the unknown God. And he reduces it down to this, Yahweh character. But really what they're saying is that there's this daimon of the unknown, right? So as a part of yourself, it's connected to all the other unknowns in the universe. And what you see a lot with hauntings and all the rest of like cryptid behavior is that there's always a part of the body that is unseen, right? So if you think about like apparitions and stuff like that, usually the feet aren't there or some other part of the body just isn't there. And I think that's sort of representative of this unknown daimones. It's like there's always got to be something that's not visible, that's not clearly identifiable, so that this thing can exist in our reality. It's like separating the parts of the soul. And so I think what you're seeing with that experience, seeing that thing come out of him, was like, this is the thing that's sort of taking the place of that unknown daimones, because you can swap these out. You just have to, engage in that sort of magical practice to do that. And so basically he sort of traded part of his soul, or maybe, came into this reality with part of that soul sort of missing. And you kind of felt that too, which is, I wouldn't say that it's too common, but when people finally tap into that sort of thing and understand that it's there, the whole world kind of opens up.
Sure, totally. And you're saying like that's something that he was missing?
I think he replaced it. Right?
Oh,
So instead of having
interesting.
that
Yeah,
known, right?
Yeah, because because he had so much intention, I feel like, is that like, as you said, ritual starts in the mind, and it made me think like, would he have had to have performed some sort of ritual beforehand to be able to fucking make his heart look like it was going to come out of his chest like that? Or is that like sorcery because he's on drugs kind of thing?
I think somebody might have. I don't think it was necessarily him that did it. And you see this a lot in MK Ultra and other stuff like that. Is they're trying to demonize this patient, by putting other personality types in them. And what they're doing is they're taking out parts that are already integrated into a normal person and putting stuff in. So I think
because like I always got this like sense that like maybe his family or something, like I don't really know, like, but I did, like, I knew his family was like more well off for the island and things like that. And his, like I said later on in the story, like his name was like really long, like blue bloody, like Sir Keenan James William Dumont White, like bullshit. Like it was like a long fucking name, right? And so I always got this sense intuitively that he was a victim. And I always felt like his soul and his spirit was like apologetic to me after he passed away. So I guess that's another part of the story. So I guess in this sense, though, I felt there was a small possibility that he himself wasn't like in control also, if that makes sense. And I find that very interesting that that's something that you immediately brought up, because I just was never sure, like, because I felt a certain way towards him that I felt like he was my friend, you know, like in spirit. And to me, I felt like it was very juxtaposing, because he was my friend, but then all of this crazy negative shit was going on. And yeah, because like this story develops in the sense that I get like, hey, so after we go to Salt Spring, and he had just, okay, and I guess like something to note about this was like, I wasn't attracted to Keenan. I wasn't unattracted to him, but I was kind of like, yo, like you're a little weird. Like, so I wasn't sexually open to him. But after he like did this heart magic experience thing, I was like really like just open sexually to him. Like it was like a like switch, right? And he brought me back to his place, which was actually like just like a rundown little shed. Like it wasn't even a home. Like he like made it seem like something greater than it was. And so I get all these senses all the time. Like I'm believing that this is amazing, but the house I'm living in is disgusting. Like I have no food. Like there's all these things that are just like in the background, making me aware that I wasn't super aware of much at this point. But so I went into town, and I was at the Apple Tree Park with a few people, and Keenan acted kind of weird. So he left, and each step farther he got away, I began feeling this like intense urge to follow him and continue to go. Like I was actively resisting the feeling to follow him and go. Like I was like, he wants me to come to him. And I was like, no. But then it's a little graphic, but I must have got my period, because I just like I bled so heavily for that second, and that I was like, fuck, like I have to get up and like go deal with this. So I got up and ran in the direction of Keenan. And when I was running through this parking lot, there was this giant cigarette butt on the ground. And I used to pick butts, so I was like really tempted to pick it up, right? And then I was like, I gotta find a bathroom. And I got a strong thought, like turn around, pick up that butt. And I turned around and I picked up the butt. And there was off of the side mirrors of this vehicle, it was like when light hits a mirror, it can make a pattern of some sort on the ground, right? And so it made a perfect star. And then on the other side of the car, there was a perfect star with a circle around it. And then I got the divine masculine, divine feminine, God's most sacred gift to the lovers, like message in my mind really strongly. And then I continued to like kind of like telepathically like kind of try to locate Keenan, like trying to like listen to where he was in my spirit. So I got to this building, and I was like, thought he was on the other side, but then I went the other way, and then I couldn't find him. And I did like a big loop, looked around the whole building, got back to his house, and I asked him like, what side of the building were you on or whatever? And he like told me the other side. And I believed him, right? Like he easily could have just been like playing like super hard into like my delusions at this point. But I really felt like I could telepathically locate like where he was, like truly. And I also felt like those symbols were created by something spiritual in nature. Like I was like, oh, that perfect star is being manipulated by an entity of some sort. Like I knew. And so because Keenan had a super peculiar way of acting out sometimes, I wasn't entirely comfortable around him. So like he would act really strange, like all of a sudden, like he would appear as if he had like disdain, like he was like mocking or whatever. Like he had disdain for the seraph, extraordinarily proud sounding and like booming, and like his voice would get really loud when he would say the word Leviathan and stuff like that. He just appeared like something serpent-like took over him sometimes. He'd almost get a sort of I called it like reptilian space commander like tone in his voice, where he was like, oh, we smashed 2 planets together to create the Earth. Like he was like kind of going off on like the history of the formation of the Earth from like an alien like perspective. I guess he would kind of that's how it would filter into me anyway. That's how I saw it. So that's just uncomfortable to kind of exist around, you know, a little bit in life.
Did he say which one? Well, see, there's this thing about Crius, one of these big asteroids. I believe it's 1/8 the size of the moon, and the moon is 1/8 the size of Earth. And Crius seems like that's where we got all of the moon material from, and it's one of the planetoids in the asteroid belt. So there could be something to what he's talking about, which might be a little scary even
well,
that.
that's, and like I was kind of like how I said like the Dolores Cannon book like made me think I was like starseed or whatever. Like I really believed in like physical aliens being physically doing things on Earth or whatever. Like I don't know. I almost felt like, because when you look at, like, I don't know, like reptilian stuff and whatnot, like people kind of do talk about that. I don't really know. It's not that I don't believe that people smashed. Like I just don't know if I believe that. Like my whole experience has like really made me believe in like just kind of almost like a soul projection, kind of like that's this experience. Like there's, I don't know. And so I don't know. I used to believe him wholeheartedly that he was like an alien that like he was an incarnated star seed whose past life prior he remembered smashing those things together to make the planet, right? That's how I understood that this was possible, was through like it was like in his like soul or in his past lives, kind of all in one moment, one time kind of thing.
Well, let me ask this: did he have memories of these times when he would tell you these things, or was it sort of blocked off, or was it all integrated?
I don't think it was integrated by any means, because he was like it was almost, yeah, like just how I would say he would almost like snap into these weird things. I don't think that. I think if it was integrated, he'd be able to like calmly explain rather than just like go into reptilian space commander mode, you know?
Right. Well, it could have something to do with the bloodline. You know?
I wonder, and that's why I was like, that's why this experience was like so crazy to me. It was like, because I was like, what if he did have like blue blood family that he was susceptible to whatever because of his family and things. And he was a very big guy, you know, like he was tall. So I don't know if that adds too much to it. When he said he was Nephilim, the feeling that I recall was, you know, it's like easily like when he's reptilian space commander, it's like, oh, that's something else. When he said Nephilim, it was more subtle. But that was also my first experience with it, right? So recalling it is probably like just naturally not as potent. I think is like a lot of people around him, like maybe were used to this kind of behavior because a lot of people weren't fazed by it. Like for example, we went to his friend's house and his friend was like goes into like this like full on fucking like demonic episode was just ultimately really uncomfortable to watch. Like he just like started acting like something non-human, like of a reptilian nature. Like I don't know how to describe it. Like a dragon or whatever is the best way to describe it. Like if a dragon started gnashing and started like making all these noises and shit, that's to me how I would be able to describe it. And so it made everyone in the room like visibly uncomfortable. And his friend like had his glass of water on the table, like put his fingers in it and like flipped some water up at Keenan because he was like, "Be gone, demon," but like jokingly. But he was like, clearly everyone in the room just noticed something because his friend jokingly said like, "Cast you out, demon," you know? So those were the experiences that were notable when, I think he just got normal, to be honest. Just like not like noticeably like snap to normal, but just like chill normal, you know, like nothing happened or like transitioning seamlessly into the next thing, I guess I could say. But he acted like that sort of dragon gnashiness, like that's like a huge.
It sounds like a classic DID.
It sounds like what?
Classic DID, sort of dissociative personality disorder. So definitely sort of like a multiple.
Interesting. I'll say that after, yes. So because Keenan weirded me out, I just gravitated towards like a closer group of friends of mine who are all closer to my age. They were just better friends for me at the time. So it's bicycle day. We know 420 is tomorrow, and all my friends are debating where we want to go for 420 to party. We almost go to Salt Spring. Like in my mind, I was like, is it between Salt Spring and Victoria? And then we just chose Victoria. And after a couple nights partying, because I guess it was actually a couple days, and my friend and I go down to the park where me and Keenan actually sat drinking that bottle of cider for the first time. And my friend's nickname at the time was Princess. And so I called her Prin. And Prin, so naturally the lore of the dragon and the princess was an aspect of my delusion, I write. But Prin looks up to me from her phone and says, "Shit, Michaela, Keenan died." And so I get fucking upset, right? Because he was such an important person to me at this time. She shows me this article, and I linked you the article. I don't know if you looked at it, but it states, that's all right. It's stupid long. But he died because he gave me that watch set at 420, right? And his was synchronized mine. The article said he died at approximately 4:20 a.m. on April 22nd. And so I freaked the actual fuck out, right? Like I was like really distraught. Like I was sad because he died because of the strong connection and all this magical shit. Like he was like the most important person to me because of all this stuff he was like showing me in my life at that time. And I just like was shattered. Like incomprehensible pain. Like I felt like for knowing him only like a month, like the amount of pain that I felt was just like incongruent with how long I knew him and things like that, how much I actually knew him.
No.
Like I didn't think that when he gave me that watch, he kind of handed it to me in this sly way where it's like I felt like he had a thought when he was handing it to me. And later when he passed away and I noticed like the numbers came about, I was like, yeah, like I knew that he knew something when he passed me those numbers, but I don't know if he knew he was going to die. And so I feel like my friends at that time, because like this guy, that ginger traveler, Michael Savage, who has the same name as me, those group of friends were the friends that I chose to go to Victoria with on like for 420 rather than go to Salt Spring, right? So like my timeline split, and with my friends, they were more representative of like God to me. Like they were just like higher aligned, like in my spirit and everything. My friends were so amazing at that time. And then to me, that's evident through Michael having the same name as me. And then also because Michael's this masculine aspect, and Keenan was supposed to be this masculine aspect, this worked up, like cooked up thing in my brain. You're the red, he's the black, everything, right? But then Michael's just chilling there, and he's like just representative of the same thing in a more benevolent, benign way, and less forced. I feel that God has gifted me the truth through dates, names, and numbers. So a little more depth to the picture of surrounding Keenan, to add a little more depth to the picture of darkness that surrounded Keenan. His death was brutal. See, he went out in a very dramatic way, and it wasn't very pretty, but shortly stated, as to respect Keenan and others involved, he was incredibly high on PCP and probably other things, and became violent when everyone around him, because he wanted to have sex with a woman who didn't reciprocate. So as his violence escalated the situation, more benevolent men tried to relax the situation and get Keenan restrained, but he grabbed a box cutter and slashed the neck of one of my dearest friends who grew up with him on Salt Spring. Like they were like childhood homies. And the crazy thing about that is that earlier that day, my still alive friend was gifted by one of his other oldest childhood friends. So not Keenan, just like a different random dude that came into his life for that day. They like didn't get to see each other very often. They hung out. He gave him this titanium necklace, and where Keenan slashed, the only reason he's still alive today is because the titanium necklace blocked where the main artery would have got cut, right? So he's got a massive scar, but he was so divinely spared, right? And so later, after learning it was a heart attack Keenan passed away from, I was left with these insanely painful and delusional regrets about not choosing to be on Salt Spring for 420 and being present during Keenan's time of need. Because I thought he gave me his heart during this experience on PCP. I used to think if I was just present during his time of need, I could have presented him with his other half of his heart. That was like stored in me somehow. A broken heart, because all Keenan needed that night was a lady, and I could have been that lady and saved him from his peril, even though he's kind of a racist, murdering piece of shit. Taken me years to realize that he wasn't a good person. I digress. I felt immeasurable guilt for years. It's probably really important to note at this point that the claircognizant experiences that I was having kind of amplified, and they manifested to me in like a really disconcerting way after having sex with him one day. And so he was like a disgustingly obsessed sexual person, and had Kundalini activation during intercourse with him, so a very powerful sexual experience, but which I later feel was a hook that dug into me to make me feel everlastingly devoted towards this individual and entrench me further in my lust for him, because I do not feel that it came from a pure place. So this fake Kundalini activation simulated what ecstasy is like, because intimacy with my now husband is like, I know that the experience I had with Keenan was basically the fake version of the real thing, because really the experience felt forced upon me rather than me being a free and willing participant in that level of feeling. So I subtly knew that there was something wrong with the experience, but because he would act so peculiarly and fucking demonic, I knew being with him was more wrong in more ways than one. So this subtle awareness of being with him, so it really dramatically manifested to me in I got these sensations, thoughts of what felt like memories, because I felt like I was one of the daughters of men, like that got raped by the fallen angels. And still being unaware of the story in Genesis, this information about the women who procreated with the angels came straight into my head from the ether. It was an incredibly juxtaposing feeling, because angelic rape was recalled to me as being the most pleasurable experience sexually possible to a human, but because of it being more psychic, magical in nature, it felt like the incomprehensible helplessness of these women, like the way they were psychically and physically dominated. Like, it would, you know, and then also on top of that, they were like able to magically embellish the psychic like ecstasy and stuff like that. So like they were able to like further rape the women in their minds rather than just their bodies. Like, they, you know what I mean? Like, it was, yeah, like, yeah. But I did get this sense that I felt like I was chosen by this fallen spiritual king, a being of great spiritual power, but a being that wasn't actually acting with integrity, or a being that no longer upheld any good values any longer. So since I hadn't opened my Bible yet, but because I felt like I could remember it happening to me, I began to understand that what was going on around me, I was potentially encountering like fallen angelics. And I just started to become aware of that before I even knew that that was a story in the Bible. And this all started to make so much more sense to me when I remembered that he called himself Nephilim when I met him. I used to get like super prideful sensations of like, I'm Lucifer's bride and shit like that. Like, I'd all of a sudden be like some, and I am the red dragon. He's the black dragon. That played into that also. Everything appeared to me to have this subtle energy signature of serpent-like, draconic and distorted angelic frequencies. Like, the lens I was looking through the world in was like this serpent-like, distorted, like, I was like almost, maybe I was becoming like these things, you know, inside of myself. So also importantly about the names and numbers thing is Kenan, the name Kenan actually means ancient, and Canaan, but it might be pronounced Kenan in Hebrew, is Hebrew for possessed. So I genuinely believe that God encoded Kenan's name with the truth of what he was presenting to me. When I found out it meant possessed and ancient, I was certain when he called himself a Nephilim, he was genuinely addressing what he actually was, because the ancient disembodied spirits of the Nephilim are supposed to be known for possessing people. And I do feel like the energy I felt surrounding me at this time could definitely be characterized as fallen angelic feeling. Like, it was just a hair away from being actually divine. It just felt like it missed the mark energetically and was so close to being divine, but just wasn't.
Now, do you know if Kenan had any children?
He did.
Have you kept in contact or tried to figure out where they are or anything like that?
No, I actually, like, I think he was kind of deadbeat and then had a bunch of baby mamas kind of thing. So I wouldn't even know. Like, why do you say that?
Well, I mean, if their goal is to procreate into reality more of that same spirit, you know, the offspring might have some of that sort of included in that, you know, milieu of the soul.
Word.
So
It's definitely creepy, like, to feel so close to that.
because if you did get the sense that maybe it was his family doing this to him, maybe that was kind of the goal, is to just get him to get out there and make as many babies as possible so that they can kind of start spreading that seed again.
Yeah, I mean, like, if he was unconsciously programmed to act in these ways, because he did kind of run rampant, probably, you know. And I think, like, because when he passed away, his sister wrote on his Facebook wall about how he had mental illness. Like, she, like, that, oh, he struggled with mental illness all his life or whatever. And I was like, what fucked up thing to say about your brother right after he died. Like, I just kind of thought that for some reason that stuck out to me in my mind, that his family was calling him mentally ill in their household.
Maybe a cover.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I mean, right? Because it was so public. And so usually people archive Facebooks if they love them too. His is gone. I've wondered why for a long time, you know? Yeah. And so suspicious death on Salt Spring. This was one of the things that actually really, really fucked me up about it. Because I was like, they were trying to kill him, man. Like I was like I was fucked up. Like I was like, it was the cops, bro. Because Keenan used to talk about, I don't know, he's just used to bring up like how he would be able to challenge the cops on Salt Spring in certain ways. Like he held some power within some knowledge or something, like in that way. That's how I felt about it, right? Like, but I also was like really embellished in my brain about this guy, like in a lot of ways. So it's hard for me to discern. But
Could have been.
When the cops, I remember my friend telling me that they took too long to get there because they were performing CPR on him, and they took him away in the ambulance, and he died in the ambulance. But I remember there being a discrepancy in time to when he got to the hospital or whatever, like when he was pronounced dead. And then the article talks about how they wanted to see if there was RCMP involvement in the death. And I remember like after he died, I was like, what the fuck? Like, why would the RCMP be involved in his death? You know, like
Right.
It made absolutely no sense to me that would even have to be questioned if someone's death was normal. But I do feel like his family was like small. Like Salt Spring's a fucked up little place, man. Like little hippie community, but like the shit that goes on, the seedy underbelly of that place is rank. I swear, man. And like the worst side of it, you know? Like I've never spoken to him, so it feels a little unfair to like just paint it like that. But because I had these like intuitive senses and like I was like, I used to think they fucking killed him, you know? Like, and so I don't really know how people can die at the exact same time that they told me about too. Like he told me, you know? Like he told me.
Right. Well, when you first met him, that's what started a chain of synchronicities. You know, it was not just that; it was also this guy Michael.
It was the day before.
It was when we met on the 22nd.
So, I mean,
Because the day before I like was crying out. I was just gonna say that the day before I met Keenan, I was crying out to the sky, and then that's when that thing manifested behind me. So I think that whatever the fuck that was, maybe not. Like I felt like it pieced. Like I didn't think it hung around, right? But maybe that's what started it. Like, because I felt like I alerted to something in the spiritual realm. Something came, and then the next day I'm meeting the Nephilim. And it started with the Dolores Cannon book, in my opinion, to be honest, in a way that New Age kind of like weaves its web into this shit. And really, like, I don't think it's healthy to believe you're a starseed and a dragon. Like, not anymore. You know what I mean? Like the way that those things were fed to me. Like, to me, I see it as a completely controlled, scripted narrative to lead people astray, like false light, like kind of thing.
Yeah, I get that impression too from the whole New Age movement. It seems like it's so perfectly designed to get into people's minds that they are these, magnificent beings, but never to talk about the costs. Because there's a huge cost that comes along with this stuff that doesn't really get examined. And once people get into that mindset, then these things take a lot more shape. As in, maybe they don't belong in the human world, and they're trying to intrude.
I don't think so. And I think that like I don't know. I think that's something I think that there is a force that definitely reckons with it. Like something that's bigger that like kept me safe from it. Like I said, like I dedicate it to me just like having that small inkling to keep a Bible on me, like just have a little bit of faith, like whatever it was, like in a unified energy, I guess. Because I was never really prescribed to like Christian whatever, but I did believe in like the one, because I took psychedelics and shit like that, right? So I don't know. There's like because my story goes on to like my today.
It keeps going.
Like it literally just like keeps going. Like I was gonna say to you that like
The number increase.
I was gonna say that this like podcast, like this part in my journey, like probably why I appear so nervous and like totally crazy or whatever. I definitely didn't prepare, like I had to work and then I wanted to get on it right away for you. But I felt like, because I don't think you have, because I wasn't going to send my story to you. I was going to bitch out and I fucking just made myself do it because it was April 2nd, 4/2. I was like, just fucking do it. So I did it. And then when you posted with Nick, your stream was 42 minutes and 37 seconds long.
And your story started at 22.
And my story started at 2020. Like when you said, okay, into this girl's story, it was 2020. But I felt yesterday I had this really incredible experience where I felt like the spirit that's guiding me through this experience is like living. And I felt like it was like alive with me yesterday. And choosing to tell my story was always something that I wanted to do, but it was like from a darker mindset, a more manipulated mindset that I wanted to become a twin flame influencer. And also yesterday, fucking Twin Flames came up in your pod with Ryder. You said you didn't know much about them or whatever. And I was like, well, that's perfect segue into like my story, because this whole divine masculine, divine feminine, like drama that was cooked up in my mind, like led me to believing in twin flames later on. Right. And that's literally another crazy ass, like every part of my story has like a big part to it. It's been 10, almost 10 years now that this has been a giant experience in my life ever since I met this guy. I have been like chained to this experience since it happened to me, and only until recently have I been freed of it. And that's why I'm choosing to speak about it now. And that's why, and I also feel like it's super significant that you're the headless giant, because the only way to kill a giant is to fucking cut its head off, right? And to me, it felt like that was really, really symbolic to where I'm at in my journey. Like I've cut the head off of the fucking giant and I'm like free to go about my business now, you know?
Right. Catharsis. So it's like completing the circle.
And it feels really incredible, to be honest. And so thank you.
Well, that's what I'm here for. I want people to get that sort of sense of catharsis, because oftentimes what you'll end up doing is just going over these stories over and over again in your head, but you don't get a sense of completion. And obviously now with, Keenan being dead, it's very hard to get that sort of sense of completion, even though he's had such an impact on your life. It's, what do you do with that? And I think telling people is a good way of sort of completing that circle and getting it out,
And also I really would like to almost if I could raise awareness about my experience, because I don't know if anyone else is experiencing the same thing as me, but they have that tiny little seed of doubt, maybe it would just help bring that seed of doubt, like some growth, right? I have another little side story about this. It happened right after Keenan died, and I was panhandling, and there's a dude comes off the boat looking for weed, and he was just asking me where can I go find a store or something, and then he stops for a second. He's like, whoa, shivers, and he's like, they have a message for you. And I was like, okay, what? And he was like, your journey has a destination. And as he's like, we're fading into our goodbyes, I'm like fully taken over by this thought. Like, I describe it here as like, I felt like my head got incredibly light, almost like a ringing in my ears without the sound, and my body lightly hummed. And the world sort of snapped into a single visual scene that I saw momentarily, where I was sitting on the concrete in this earth world, completely ostracized from a place where I once had wings. So this momentary but incredibly visceral image was of me sitting in front of where I was sitting in sort of a darkened and fuzzy version of this world with my wings entirely cut off. Earth felt like a place I was destined to exist, external to a more spiritually abundant world I had a faint awareness of. I got a flood of gratitude. I understood at some point in my spiritual journey, eventually I would be welcomed into this distantly familiar world where the truths behind the things that mystify mankind are translated into a place of complete spiritual benevolence. And as I felt this message related directly to this journey of insane experiences I was currently having in my life, it gave me such a strong sense that at the end of my journey, I would in fact end up in a place. And somehow what I'm currently experiencing now is reflecting into where I'm destined to end up. So my memory of this guy too, who got off the boat and said this to me, if you've ever seen the Disney Hercules movie, he looks like Hermes. In my memory of him, he had like these little glasses, and like, I don't know, that to me was like, I literally walked away from that experience being like, I just fucking met Hermes, bro. Like, I swear to God.
Well, I mean,
and I felt like in this world,
I'm certain he had a real hermetic energy, being that close to the river. Like Slick was just talking about the river Styx and how serpents can cross the river Styx. And let me see if I can pull this one up. Here we go.
And you know what? The fact that Victoria is a border place, so he got off an American boat. So he was coming from a different place. He crossed waters that define a border, like symbolic of the river Styx being the river that crosses you over from the living to the dead. That is so crazy. I never ever even thought of that aspect of that part of the Hermes, because he was a tourist that got off the boat, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he got off the ferry from the States into Canada looking for a weed store. It's like not just the fact that he looked like Hermes, but he
a
came
weed
from
store too, because the 420 and all of it and all this shit too.
See, in every single I should.
No, this is my husband. Like, he's here. This is Matt.
I say I am a huge fan. I've been listening for so long. Like, you guys have been a huge part of this journey for my wife, and it's been something incredible for both of us for like this whole thing. Even though I haven't been physically there, I've been a part of this journey for 10 years, and I've been there every step of the way with her, just not fully immersed in it. So this is and the fact that it's with you guys, this is incredible. Like, I gotta say, I didn't mean to interject, but this is so moving and incredible.
Well, I'm glad.
Yeah, but that was a really cool poem.
So there's I think like for him to actually acknowledge that something is giving him the message that he's got to bring to you, it even brings out more of that Hermes stuff. And Slick's always on it when he starts to get intuitive. And so I think for him to bring that up, that's pretty interesting too. If you guys don't know Slick Dissident, check out his YouTube channel. He's really good. I think you'll enjoy his programs too.
I certainly know.
Sure.
Yeah, totally. That's amazing.
So I think what you're getting is sort of like, because again, like if he is crossing over the border, that's representative of basically taking the ideas from the underworld and bringing them out, and so having that sort of connection there, and that sensation, you're kind of getting the full picture, maybe not in words, but in something that sort of surpasses words.
But then I was like made to feel like I was cut off from my wings. Like I really got a sense that Earth is a place where you're almost cast out from heaven or whatever, I guess. That's the way that I've always felt about that. Like, I was like, oh, your journey has a destination. Holy shit balls, I'm going to heaven. You know what I mean? Like, that's exactly how it made me feel. but it made me feel like I was going to regain my wings because of like the visceral image of me losing my wings. And then I also had that experience initially with the elven dragon that I felt like I had wings, like kind of thing.
Right? Maybe ancestral memory.
So as my life continued, astral memory.
Well, ancestral memory or astral memory. Yeah, you can really team those up.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said astral.
Well, I mean, that could be part of it too, because I think there are different parts of the soul. And, you know, where they come from is sort of up for debate. But if you're talking about an astral memory or an ancestral memory, it's kind of coming through the same idea. It's sort of like a memory of a place where you haven't physically been, but a part of you still feels an affinity towards that, you know?
It feels like recalling that experience too. Like I've always felt like maybe if you were like a druid or something, the world that you might see, but like with elves and fairies and, you know, being more connected to that world in a magical order. Like I don't know if maybe because like that part of the world they like considered that sort of thing like a little bit more. I actually don't know, but I'm Welsh as shit, like on both sides of my family. Like I'm super Welsh, and I don't know, I've always kind of felt like the magic of the fairies and the dragons in the place where parallel worlds exist here. I feel like I've been able to like access that from that moment on. Like it feels like a space here.
No, I get that. There's something. Oh, go ahead.
So my life continues on, and I'm in this, you know, wake of this massive loss and massive spiritual confusion. I become destitute, heartbroken. I look for Keenan and everything. I genuinely felt like his spirit hung around me for a while after he passed because I would talk to him and ask for signs and I would receive things. One time he gave me like a fantasy card game that had like a Hydra on it. And then the other time he gave me a metallic dragon wing. And so at this point, like my friend left to Ontario and I needed to get out of Victoria. Hey.
Check this comment out by Slick. He says, April 22nd, 1930, IAU demoted Argo constellation like converting N2 submarine and exalted the Hydra to #1 by size. So the Hydra constellation then became the largest one because they demoted the Argo, which is this ship that the Argonauts was on, Jason and the Argonauts.
Yeah.
So this was on April 22nd, 1930.
Crazy.
Dude, but April 22nd is also St. George's Day, which is the legend of St. George slaying the dragon too. Like, that's yikes.
That's insane.
If that to me seems like, bro.
Oh my god.
But like, why?
Does that shower start on the 22nd?
It says peak expression, so that would be like the height of that Lyra meteor shower.
Wow. That's crazy.
He was calling all the
seems like, well, like, oh goodness. No.
I'll just have my own.
Wow. Because if something else, like you were talking about his family or whatever, like if there were other magicians or other things that worked through him, they would be able to link like that, you know what I mean? Like that Hydra event, like to me, that's like a bigger picture than Keenan was able to see. But because everything that was like physical just kind of like washed away, it all turned to one thing. Like I don't know how someone else would be able to create that experience for me and then like, I don't know, link it all together like through him. Like, I don't know how that would happen.
It's almost like just like basically the one story that is playing through your life and all of the signs, you know, like just through all the correlations that happen, like both in the stars, world events, you know, like what he just said, like
That's
something
crazy.
about an astronomical society event that happened, you know, in the, like, I bet if one of the things that was super, super, super interesting for me to kind of to hear your guys' input on things was on the grammatria and numerology side of things, because that is something that never stops. Like every time we leave the house, we'll either see a license plate that has our letters or the numbers 422 or our life path numbers in combination with the days of 422 or 420, or something as simple as the odometer lining up in perfect, you know, like the numbers will all be the same on the tachometer, the odometer, the speedometer will all be the, you know, like it's ridiculous. And yeah, anyways, I don't know anything about grammatry or numerology, but
Well, the
I got a
interesting
pic-
thing
I got a picture of the
about
constellation Hydra. So this is the biggest one in the sky,
oh man,
and that
oh
is what.
really?
Yeah,
that's
that was right. Look at the dragon, dude. Come on.
that's insanity. That's
It
craziness.
feels like, and for it to be the biggest constellation, I feel like is no like coincidence either.
And even just our signs and stuff like that, and the days of our birth. It's just nuts.
Well, I mean, you've got
So I'm hanging on.
we got Pythagoras, who says that all matter springs out of number, right? And so the idea behind the Greek isopsephy would be the idea that all of these numbers are manifested from these small particles into a much bigger thing. And so when you're talking about all of these symbols and everything else lining up on the 22nd like that, I think you're seeing, you know, sort of like the blooming of all of this stuff that's sort of been kept under the rug for a long time.
Well, and we've taken a measure of deliberation to incorporate those numbers into our life after we started noticing, like, because we met.
Well, this is
Yeah,
we have
so-
to we have
yeah.
we actually have to wait because it doesn't all make sense. Like it's so crazy how like the stuff that happened to me alone later like makes so much sense to like for me and Matt. But I was on the Greyhound bus going to Ontario, and I wrote up this giant status on Facebook, and I was like characters away from it being finished, and my screen blacks out, goes to the homepage. I try to go recover my letter, my status, and it's completely gone. So I'm like so heartbroken. I just poured my heart and soul into this message, and my nose starts bleeding. And I was like, I got a feeling like I was like, okay, Keenan just made me bleed again. And I felt like he was saying, it's okay, let go. Like he didn't want me to have that heartfelt message on my memories on Facebook for like ever, you know? Which is probably because of how heartbroken and shit I was. It was probably,
I think a big part of this that you might be missing is your music. Because he keeps talking about Lyra and this, you know, Lyra meteor shower. That's all about music. You know, that's the harp. So, you know, maybe there is some sort of
that'll definitely come into play like in a later part of the story. Like that is really interesting.
That is so crazy.
It is very crazy. And yeah.
This is insane.
Oh my gosh.
I'm telling you,
so life goes on. I'm genuinely man.
Oh, go ahead.
This is yeah.
Oh, so like life goes on. I'm still super heartbroken. I'm basically like defined by this experience, like who I am. I just it's all I talk about, it's all I act like it's all that matters to me, right? And we meet up with these boys, and one of them had like a super small, super big obsession with me. He was like hell bent on making me his girlfriend, right? And so when I was away driving back to BC, he actually spent the night at this New Orleans punk lady's house in Nanaimo, and she had a voodoo tree in her backyard, and she she got him to like write a symbol in the tree, and he was like, it practice like love magic. Like he had the intention of getting me through this voodoo spell, right? And stupidly, he ends up becoming my boyfriend, right? I didn't even really like the guy, you know? Like there were way cooler people around me at the time. Like I had my choice of cool people, like musicians and travelers and shit, and I went with the weirdo. And I think it's because he voodooed me and had the strongest will ever to fucking get me, because truly, like, after being with him the first time, like, I was, like, locked in again, you know? Like, I feel like all these experiences with these men have just, like, been so, like, willful towards me and so unfair, you know? And so his name is Scott, and Scott's the most immature person ever. Like I still wasn't over Keenan, and so I had to start like closeting my experience, because every time that I would like be open and talk about what I'm thinking and stuff like that, he would start to get jealous, and like I wasn't allowed to be in love with a dead guy anymore, basically, you know. And everything inside started to become closeted. I lived to pacify the outside, and then in another part of my life, I was just in total misery inside of myself, missing my dead lover. And something to note about this place that I lived is it's called like, so I was in Gibson's, and down the road is Roberts Creek. And earlier in the story, like I wanted to visit Keenan while he was still alive on Salt Spring. I visited, and he was actually in Roberts Creek, so I didn't get to see him this one time. And I just feel like that was like some sort of link, because like him being in Roberts Creek the day that I missed him, because Scott's middle name is Robert, and I ended up living like very close to Roberts Creek for 6 years with this guy. And I always felt like that was like I believe Keenan being in Roberts Creek the day that I missed him in some way was foreshadowing the fact that this area of the world would be significant in my journey after his parting somehow. So because later during this relationship with Scott, I started to learn about twin flames. Through the internet, this is what I started to be convinced that Keenan was. So many of the experiences were definitively twin flame experiences. I put 2 and 2 together about the masculine feminine downloads with this twin flame concept, and that was it. I was like, this makes sense. He's my twin flame. And so I went on Facebook, and because I had like a weekend away from Scott, and so I used that time to like go mad searching, trying to connect with people, like trying to figure out my heart, right? And I connected with this lady. I wrote on a Facebook group that I didn't end up hiding this post from Scott. I didn't even know that I had to. And I got in contact with this lady named Nanari, Princess of the Sea was her YouTube. And this name immediately spoke to me, because Keenan had like all these weird nicknames for me and stuff like that. And he would like go into like a pirate, you know what it was almost like a pirate. It was like a pirate voice, I swear. And he would call me his fair sea hag. I know. And so I know. And so because Nanari was Princess of the Sea, I was like, oh my God, like Princess of the Sea, she is like, because like for some reason water symbol, like water, when I felt like he would talk to me in that pirate voice, like somehow being like a sailor or like that type of vibe would like kind of come through, like an element of water or sailing the seas was another kind of experience that I had. And so her poetry resonated with me. I got a conversation going with her, and she affirmed that the watch that he gave me was definitely indicative of twin flames. And when I asked her if I'd ever be able to see him again, because that's all I wanted, I was like, I need to see you again. Like that was where I was at. She told me that he was supposed to come back in as a walk-in. And so what a walk-in is supposed to be basically Keenan's soul coming back to this experience through another body portal. So like I would see Keenan in another person's body one day. So obviously that was all the hope that I needed. When I asked her why dragons appeared to be a part of my whole experience, she said it's because twin souls often have other life experiences where they were some type of mystical being, because she told me her and her twin had a life as unicorns before. I also resonated with Nanari in regards to her connection with Lemuria, and felt like I understood her Lemurian light language, and honestly felt like I remembered her as a part of the priestesshood where I studied and practiced and held space for the consciousness of the land at the time. This conversation with her invoked memories of this high vibrational golden age of humanity in me, where I was once before incarnated with my twin soul other half. The world I remembered to note also had a profound connection with water. So I wake up the next morning after feeling super jazzed about my conversation with Nanari, and I am to take the bus home back to Scott. I'm just blissful in my own little world, recalling the things that I resonated with our conversation. And as the bus passes the ocean, I look up and I see porpoises. And porpoises are like, to me, I never really saw them. Like, I seen more whales in my life living on Vancouver Island than I ever did porpoises. So it was really like a really big thing for me. And then the sun reflected across the water and like, and it like blasted in my head and my third eye, my eyes, and just like I felt like it came from like the grand central sun or whatever. It felt like light energy that came from farther away than just our sun. Like it was like more aware of like everything in all of creation, not just our sun. And so I began to cry. I felt like there was knowledge encoded in the light of the sun that was agreeing with my newfound connection of Lemuria and also confirming my connection with my twin soul. I believed it was divinely orchestrated because like the sun paired with the dolphins, like I was like, that's Lemuria. Like Lemuria just spoke to me. And I get home and Scott sees that I wrote this whole twin flame thing out. So it became, at that point in our relationship, like it became apples and oranges. Like I was going nowhere, but it just went downhill from there. And so I only had a few possessions from the time that I spent with Keenan. The watch that I had, I smashed on the rocks by the water where he and I sat for the first time, but he wrote me this note. And so this note comes around and has significance later on in my story as well. But he wrote me this note, and all I can remember from the note is, "You are my muse, one love goddess." And so Scott burnt the note in front of me one night. That's why I can only remember "You are my muse, one love goddess," because he fucking destroyed my sacred property, you know? And I think it was beneficial for me to lose that note, and never, like that had to happen in order for like more magic to occur in my life. But it was so devastating to me to have those words taken from me.
Not the power taken.
Yeah, like it was really, 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 really shitty. I was like in so much agony all the time. Like I was in a relationship, but I was like missing like I was grieving, and then I wasn't allowed to grieve, and this person just wouldn't let me leave, you know. The experiences I had with Keenan were not normal, so I was like unable to process the grief, basically.
Or relate to anybody.
And I didn't have anyone to relate it to. No, exactly. Years later, like me and Scott ended up moving to Edmonton, and we moved to the street behind White Ave. And so I said earlier that Keenan's name was White, right? Like, and so there was also another like steakhouse down the way who was like the name of like my friend, the same name as my friend who got slashed at the neck, like the box cutter. And so I took those two signs as like subtle confirmation that, you know, the truth that Scott was trying to stamp out in my life was like still available to me. And so my relationship with Scott continues to be super terrible. I'm actually working at the Olive Garden that Scott's mom worked at when he was a kid, and I make a bunch of friends. And so for context, how the universe likes to give me like paired name and numbers, paired names and stuff, I worked with this girl named Liz L. And then I also had another coworker named Liz W. And me and Liz W. are still friends to this day. But Scott was like texting this girl one day because she thought she was texting me because me and Scott shared a phone. So this was like the beginning of Scott becoming super obsessed with her. And he asked me to chill with her one last time. And when we were sitting at this dinner, Liz was talking about how she just broken up with her boyfriend and she literally thought he was her twin flame or something. And because like I was sitting beside Scott, I like just like took note of that. I didn't respond because I wasn't allowed, basically. And this is where things get insane for me, but in the best way possible. So it's the week of April 20th, 2023. And after all this Liz drama and my mind is clear, I've just finished pulling past, present, future cards from the Dragon Tarot deck, illustrated by Peter Kownick, that Scott actually bought me at a store called White Knight. It's spelt with Y too, which is like Keenan's last name is Y with a Y, like white with a Y. And so I attached the image in my email because the card is like a red dragon and like a really dark purple dragon. And I was like, oh my God, the red black dragon. So that was really, and Scott actually bought that for me, which was the interesting part about it too. So I reached out to Matt. This is where Matt like comes into the story. And I actually met Matt years ago. Like we found out because of his medical records. And after I came back to live with him, we found out that me and him actually met on July 22nd as well. So this all started with me and Matt. Like these numbers and these synchronicities started way back before I was like even like conscious of
And how
them.
the first words you said to me were holographic universe, eh?
So like I asked Matt to pick me up because April 21st rolls around and I'm just like super done with Scott. Like I was like, I wasn't breaking up with him because it was April 22nd. I was breaking up with him because like he had totally shown me how much of an asshole he was. And it was just time, you know? And so Matt worked nights. So he actually wasn't able to pick me up on the 21st. He was only able to pick me up the 22nd. And so I'm like packing up my shit and Matt arrives and I see him through the window and I'm like, oh, Matt looks good. Wasn't even a thought in my mind. I was like, oh, he looks so great. And then little did I know at the time that Matt was wearing an all black and his jacket had like a little bit of red on it. Like he was wearing those colors. And so Matt picked me up on April 22nd and fast forward to April 22nd, 2024, which backwards it is 4202224. Like it's like it's like the same as it is if you omit the zeros as it is backwards and forwards, which is St. George's Day. And it was the year of the Wood Dragon 2024 also. And we signed our marriage papers at 4:22 p.m. at the trout pond. Yeah, so it was you all along. This thought permeated each memory as I sifted through every experience I have had since I met Matt years ago. As night fell and we drove into the darkness and I began to reshape myself back into a person I thought I may never see again, I'm returning back to myself. I weep as I'm released from the spiritual prison I've been trapped in for almost a decade. My spirit is resurrected all in an instant of recognizing after years of suffering, I'm finally allowed to rest. As we drive, leaving my past behind me, I'm granted awareness of the divinity in the orchestration of this incredibly confusing and painful journey. Of course it was you. You've been here all along. I'm suddenly effortlessly aware that this tireless journey I was thrust into was meant to bring me the awareness of the false light experience of twin flames, in contrast to the much more docile, nourishing, friendship-oriented, free of delusion experience I have with Matt. The twin flames narrative is being pumped out all over the world right now, and I believe I've been shown just how powerful its connection to the fallen angelics it might actually be. So part 3, the holographic universe, circa 2015. It was July. Matt and I met because he had just gone through a terrible roofing accident where a piece of sheet metal went through his leg. So he was reading a book in one of the parks I always hung out in, and I decided to introduce myself and ask what book he was reading. He had his back sitting against the cherry blossom tree, and as he sat upward to respond to my question, he replied, "The Holographic Universe." And this book is actually authored by Michael Talbot. And what appeared to us as a simply charged conversation about the nature of the universe would later become aware to us that as the foundational concept to our connection. And off we went to buy bagels. So the holographic universe significance explained. I believe the twin flame experience is an over-aggrandization / spiritual inversion of the natural experience meant to have between man and woman. I've come to the realization that I'm no longer capable of seeking the truth of this reality strictly through my mind. I was very rebellious, since that I was 100% willing to essentially be my own God and paint this experience however I wanted. But it is extraordinarily evident to me that no matter how willing I was to determine how things were, there was just an undeniably all-encompassing truth that connected everything together, that just knew better than me, no matter how certain I was. I've seen how the devil attempted to use the knowledge of my destined sacred union with Matt as ammunition to deceive me into serving him. He created an exact magical replica of the real thing I desired in my soul so deeply that God had destined for me in this life, in an attempt to have me blinded and disillusioned by its false light and to endlessly deceive me away from the genuine experience of God's love through a sacred and perhaps preordained masculine-feminine union, and have me engage instead with its inverted, distorted, perverted, and oppressive version of this natural experience. My relationship with Matt is sacred. I believe he's the man that got prepared for me. And the holographic nature of experiences, names, and numbers being reflected back at me throughout my experience is what has solidified my belief that this human experience is without a doubt holographic in nature, and I feel potentially that the energy of love could also operate holographically as well. So I guess there's a few short stories that explain our holographic connection. So the first one is called The Mango. So this short little story is very near and dear to my heart and is an amazing example of how everything that occurred since the beginning has in fact been reflected back. The very first time Matt and I took LSD together, he was in a wheelchair, so I had to push him around. I became super obsessed with this French kid traveler who actually had a girlfriend, and they were all going down to the beach for a fire, and I wanted to follow them. So we followed them, and as I pushed Matt to the beach entrance, there was this giant staircase, so he wasn't able to go down to the beach. So we rolled back to the park to watch the stars together. And mind you, I'm tripping out over this French kid I had this giant crush on. And since I just thought this French kid was so sweet, I basically condensed all my feelings towards him into a single ideology, and I called him the Mango. So my entire trip is based off of me trying to find this mango, right? And so I look back now and I realize that me trying to find the mango was basically the energy of me searching for my love. So the mango was essentially an analogy for my heart. So shortly after I moved in with Matt, one day he brought me home mango juice and he said, "I found you the mango." And my heart fucking sang. It was the sweetest thing to realize the guy I was with the whole time, who was literally like searching around the park, like looking behind trees with me to find the mango, was the mango the whole time. If I'd have just opened my damn eyes. And then there's this other short story called Muse. So the note that I was talking about that Keenan wrote me and how I could only remember the "You are my muse." I linked in the email. I like highlighted this note that Matt wrote for me that I came home to one day. And the note that Matt wrote me read, "Now more than ever, I feel the need to and desire to express my feelings and in some way, or in some maybe eternalize our story through song. You are my muse and the source of everything beautiful and good and true in my life." I had never told Matt that what Keenan had written in that note, and yet Matt was exemplifying that his spirit was in tune with the originally intended purpose of those words to begin with. I believe the word muse came from Matt's spirit when he wrote it, and I believe when Keenan wrote it, it came from some type of imposter spirit that was capable of seeing my spiritual truth and mimicking it. And then, so the dude, there's like another little story where the dude that got his neck slashed, Matt was, he was visiting Vancouver Island, like a couple months into our relationship that I'm, 2024 or whatever, 2020, whatever.
I was out looking for you.
And so this guy like pops up. It's like late at night. Matt's just like walking home,
I
and
was sitting on the phone with you, actually.
yeah. So I was on the phone with Matt, and this dude pops up and
It was in the middle of a conversation about Keenan as well.
Do you want it? You should tell
Yeah,
the story.
actually, I should. So I'm in a neighborhood in close to downtown Victoria. Everybody is asleep. There's nothing open. I'm sitting on a park bench. I was going through a rough family experience, and I decided that night to buy myself a Mickey, a Fireball, and kind of sit and collect my thoughts. And Michaela phoned me, and for some reason, the conversation, I think, steered toward this whole experience where she started remembering things about Keenan, because me being in Victoria was obviously bringing up, me being in the places that we had been together, that she had kind of shared with friends that I wasn't a part of circles with. And we got to talking about Keenan, and all of a sudden I hear this voice hollering from up the road a few blocks, and up comes riding this guy on a bicycle, and he asks me if I've seen some dude, and I'm like, no, man, I'm sorry. Hey, what's your name? And he goes, my name is Vaughn. And
well, he actually came up twice. You were like,
yeah, right. He
disappeared,
yeah,
and then he came back again. And so you asked him his name because he's like, yeah, I'm just looking for my friend.
That's right. That's how it happened. Yeah. And then when he said his name, I was like, hang on, are you from Salt Spring? And when he answered in the affirmative, I was just like, hey, hang on. Like, do you know Michaela? And he goes, little Michaela? And I'm like, yeah, she's my fiance. She's on the phone with me right now. We were just talking about you. And I gave him the phone. They started talking. They talked for a couple minutes, and then my phone died. Bear, no. Yeah, I was that in that side of the experience, and she was on the other end of the phone. But Vaughn and I experienced, like, I had never met the guy. We spent 5 minutes together. I ended up doing a little bit of ketamine with him. And because I'm not like, I smoke my weed. I don't even drink really anymore that often, but I had a bit of a kind of an out of body, out of mind experience kind of thing. And he stuck with me there, and we maintained a one word at a time conversation for about 40 minutes where I didn't have to speak more than one word. And he responded to me with everything I needed. Like, it was an instant connection with somebody that, even though my initial response to him was like an awkward, uncomfortable feeling, just because, I don't know, you get those feelings, energetically, where maybe this person isn't convenient for my path that I'm on, or, like, not in a, I guess, in a judgmental way, but not in not in the way people think of as judgmental, right? Like a discerning, discriminating for your own benefit kind of way. But because it was a connection that Michaela had, I just instantly felt this trust, and I don't know, it was mind-boggling. It was
You said that you went into like a dark space too, though, right? Because you KO'd.
Yeah,
so there was like this experience that Matt described to me where you explained it to me the other day, and I really resonated with it. It was like the telepathic space was the same, like, negative circle that, like, I was able to communicate with Keenan through, like, you're able to communicate with him through, like.
Well, and I think it was in the distinct feeling that I had at that moment that I feel like allowed that one word communication was, it was really similar to our DMT experience, where I, at the same time as being the trees and the grass and the ocean, right? Like, it was more, I was feeling my son's struggle in that moment. I was feeling my struggle and my father's struggle, and they were all one in the moment. And as soon as that happened, I didn't have to talk to Vaughn anymore. We could just communicate. And it was like everything was an overlay of itself on top of itself on top of itself, right? And it was just, and I just couldn't process anymore, and I had to close my eyes and lay in my own lap for a minute. But sorry to cut in there, but that's something really that was the one, because I mean, she's shared this experience from day one, from the moment I picked her up. She explained for the whole 6.5 hour drive home, I think was the first time in her life that she was able to freely share the things that she needed to share with somebody who wasn't going to shit on her for sharing. And so having that like fiber of my being experience that tied to her experience, it was something that I just fully engaged in, and I didn't need to have some sort of evidence of her story, you know what I mean? Because I mean, I was there, I didn't experience it, but man, that connection in that moment, it just kind of made me feel like she needed to dive more into her story to fully understand as much as she could, because there's
Well,
definitely
you had the experience with Vaughn, which really did sort of tie it all back together. So I think there is, yeah, I mean, you were part of the story the whole time, it seems.
Well, like Michaela and I knew each other before she met Keenan, and before all of that stuff went down. You know, like we actually traveled the island together with our other best buddy Matt quite a bit together, and we
that's another thing is our third best friend, like we are best friends. Our other name is Matt.
You should align that to your face. Sorry, sit next to you.
I wonder if you can. Yeah. So, and also, so our first friend, like when we would travel up and down the island together with Matt, his dog's name were Bourbon and Barley. And then Matt got a dog named Bear. And then I got a dog named Buddha. So it's like another kind of confirmation of the whole names, letters, alliterate, all of it, right?
I'm gonna open this curtain.
I think there's one, two. Okay. So when I was in Gibson's, still with Scott, there was a point when he was like, I don't know, screwing around on me with another girl, and I was I was like really thinking of breaking up with him then, and so I reached out to Matt at that point in my life too, and I just didn't tell him what was going on, but I was like kind of just reaching out to be like, hey, like, you're around if I need, you know what I mean? Like, so I knew if he was around if I needed him. And because Scott's dad actually passed away, like I can look on Facebook at his last status, and it was like March 17th. And this like girl, like after Scott's dad passed away, this is when this girl came more into Scott's life. And so it was like literally would have been around April 22nd again that Matt would have picked me. That would have been like my out of that relationship back then. And Matt would have been the first person I called to pick me up, like again, like so.
And your dog Rebel was born on March 17th.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And then this walk-in thing that Nanari was talking about, like, I didn't feel like she was entirely wrong. Like, I felt like she was so fucking wrong, and I don't believe in walk-ins. But on an energetic level, I feel like maybe she was able to tap into something, because the energy of I don't want to call it my twin soul, because it's not that. It's me, only me. You know, I don't know how to describe it, but the energy of Matt walking back into my life was, I think, the energy that I was hopeful of when Nanari was portraying that idea to me in a totally false sense. No, Keenan wasn't going to return through another body portal. You know what I mean? Like, to me, I just don't really think that, based on the way that I responded to that knowledge, that is a possible experience in regards to maybe the twin flame experience, maybe other situations, I don't know. But when it comes to like twin flames, star seeds, walk-ins, these, you can start looking it up. Like if you look up articles on, I don't know if you ever have, but there's a lot of bullshit articles out there. Like there's an aspect to the twin flame thing where it's called like the runner chaser dynamic. And that was something that I felt like was being played out when it came to Keenan dying and then coming back in a body. It was going to be like the runner chaser thing, like in soul though. So like right now he's out, he's running, you know, but I don't know, he'll come back eventually. Like, so crazy. But then after this Lumiere, I don't know if you want to say something.
Oh, I was going to say that the idea that maybe he did have other souls in that body, that you were maybe seeing every time, you know, this lizard spaceman would manifest, you know, once they die, those things get separated, you know, and they're not always stuck together after death. So you could be talking about a different part of his personality. So there could be multiple
That's
layers going
interesting.
on here.
Well, like the experience that Matt had with Vaughn is like, I feel like my friend group, like my spiritual friend group, I feel like Vaughn's a part of that friend group because him and Prin were like really close too. And like Matt just like basically walking into the experience with Vaughn and doing everything that we used to do with Vaughn. Like I used to have one-word conversations on drugs with Vaughn too, you know, like it was like he was a part of that magical little sphere that we were all kind of existing in at that time. So to me, like the way that it feels is
Was it nine people?
Oh my god.
Do you know what? I bet if we were to count up the core group of our time of our really close group of friends that would all either stay at the same site or crash at the same house, it was probably 9.
Well, Keenan died at age 36, which is 9 too.
And
my life path number is 3 and Matt says 6.
And she was 27 and I was 42 when we were married. So her number was
26.
26, right?
So I'm born on May 8th. So that's like 8 is always a number that super stands out to me too. And 5 is also like today's the 5th, right? I used to think about Keenan in regards to the number 5 quite a bit. I believe he was born on July 5th or something like that. I can't remember, but I remember in my past deducing him to number 5. He was represented by number 5. And it's 2025, so the 5 is distinct in that as well. But then also, for some reason, 2025 always stands out. The 25 is alone, a 7, and then you make the 9 with 2025, right? So it's like indicative of my cycle ending, but also 7, because like our podcast was number 7. I was hoping it was going to be number 6 because of Matt's life path number, but then when 7 spoke to me, I was like, 7 is like this liberating, higher aligned number. Like it's speaking like God or whatever to me, rather than
which happens a lot, right? Like and it speaks, like you said earlier, how Pythagoras was it that said that the universe spoke through numbers? I'm probably butchering that, but I've kind of always felt that way. But it seems like there must be something in letters and words too, because all of the synchronicities involving names, like you having the same middle name as my sister, and like just the fact that now that our families are tied, I take the numbers that exist in my family too, like my sister having kids that all of their birthdays, the 3 of them all end in 7. Both my kids were born on the 6th of their month, exactly 6 years apart. Like it's
Matt and I have extraordinary parallels in our life. Like I was a missing runaway, like a big case or whatever. Like I was very public. And Matt was also public, but I couldn't find his article because he was in Colombia.
Yeah, I ran away at the same age.
Yeah, we were both 16.
Missing, both like big national missing persons cases in the countries we were living in at the time, and like for basically the same reasons almost. And there's
all kinds of stuff, but it's hard to think of everything. As you go along. There was this other experience that I had when I picked up my Lemurian crystal from the metaphysical store, because I wanted my Lemurian crystal after I met Nanari or whatever. And when I got my crystal, it's like this teeny little like broken shard looking thing. And when I picked it up, I like got this vision of me standing it was just like pretty much like Simba, you know what I mean? Like Simba at the end of the rock, like just a majestic rock like that, out looking over the ocean at the top of a mountain, where I had a man standing behind me who had thick, straight brown hair. And Keenan also had thick, straight brown hair. So I used to think it was Keenan at the time that I got this rock. And it was like, I felt like I was saying goodbye to this place. It was like Lemuria was like falling. The energy was now like being like every person who was there was consciously involved in releasing to allow like the world to fall, like the priestesshood or whatever. And so we encoded these crystals with like knowledge of the past. Like we coded the crystals with knowledge of the Lemurian like vibration, and we all like sent them out into the world so that later when we reincarnate, we would find our crystals. And so that's what I thought was I was finding my crystal that I etched for myself and to look exactly like the mountain that I was standing on in my vision. So like when I looked at this crystal and I had the vision, I was like, the crystal looks like it looks like the vision.
The fucked up thing about that is last year we live out in the country, and so we'd take our dogs just like walking along the dirt roads past the farms, and we'd pick up rocks together and just hand them to each other, right? And we got to talking. I don't remember exactly what we were talking about the one day, but I had this flash, and she'd never told me about that scene before, but I got all emotional and overcome with this vision that I had of standing, and I wanted to say it was her, but I couldn't be certain it was her. But like I'm standing on a boat looking at a mountain that's going to be consumed by the ocean as far as what I feel, kind of thing, right? And I don't know, but like I basically have this feeling the same as her, is saying goodbye to something, but being there with another person. And in the 6 months after that, I had distinct feelings of like, I know that Michaela and I have been together always, and
I think so.
I don't know, like I've heard people say the times in between supposed reincarnations or whatever, and they're differing times, but like I know that it's been before. And I had this memory while we were walking down this dirt road, and she just started crying because it was like the same kind of shit. And, we've taken pictures of, like I'll see something that reminds me of that vision, and I'll take a picture of it and send it to her, and she'll be like, yes, that's the mountain. That's the shape of the mountain, So it's like, and I don't know, maybe we're both schizo delusional or whatever, but it's there's just so many things that,
like I said,
can't be explained.
Well, I got something I could maybe add to this. So every time you keep saying Lemuria, I keep hearing Lenerian. And Lemuria is where the Hydra was. So they call it the Lenerian Hydra. So this is what I got on Wikipedia. It says the Lenerian Hydra, or Hydra of Lerna, is more often simply the Hydra is a serpentine lake monster in Greek mythology and Roman mythology. Its lair was the Lake of Lerna in Argolid, which is also the site and myth of Daenerys. Lerna was reputed to be the entrance to the underworld, and archaeology has established it as a sacred site older than the Mycenaean Argos. Back to the Argos again.
Holy shit.
In the canonical Hydra myth,
oh my
the
god,
monster was killed by Hercules in the second of his 12 labors.
Huh.
I wonder if St. George relates to like the, you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
I wonder if it does.
And when you mentioned the 9, like the 9 friends and stuff like that, like
you're saying like heads, because the Hydra has, was it 9 heads?
9 heads.
Or is it like
9
it is 9 heads, but like the reason and
the muse, like,
exactly.
right? Because like Keenan wrote me that, but then Matt wrote it to me too. Like
and
that,
there's
that when you were talking about the harp earlier, how that was the part that I was going to tie into. That was like the aspect of the muse in all of this.
Because we're both musicians as well, right? But the 9 thing comes up for me, I feel like, inverted in the 6. And she talked earlier about her Welsh heritage, and my heritage is deeply Norse. And my great grandmother traced us to the year 11 AD supposedly. And there's, it sounds fucked up to say, but they basically stopped because she got to the name Odin or something like that. And our family name, the way Norse nomenclature works, for thousands of years, our last name was Thor's son. So I've always felt this weird kind of like and she points it out too, and how the dragon came
We
out.
went to his family reunion, and there were little statues on their altar that they had there, and I think Odin was one of them.
There was a statue
and
of
the
Odin
dragon
and
was
two
another.
dragons.
There was two dragons.
There was two dragons facing each other with a wood carving of Odin as the Wanderer, and I've like the whole musician poet kind of deal, and the idea of the esoteric nature of life. You know, like I know most warrior Vikings or whatever would not be caught dead admitting to the worship of Odin, because he was largely viewed as like a feminine kind of god kind of thing, right? Like all of the things that he oversaw were more of the feminine side, I feel like, the poetry and stuff like that.
Well, often the priests of Odin would cross-dress to have their power completed, as they would say. So there is that angle too, because there's a lot of poetry and sort of feminine aspects to Odin as well, who gets interpreted as Hermes in Greek mythology. And also you've got Jormungandr, which is the huge serpent that traverses the 9 worlds in Norse mythology. So you got the 9, you got the serpent, the worm of Midgard, unfathomably large and monstrous sea serpent who dwells in the world sea encircling the earth, Midgard, and biting its own tail surrounding Midgard. The beast is referred to as the world serpent Jormungandr. Releasing his tail is one of the signs of the beginning of Ragnarok.
And you know what? Like I listened to recently. I don't know if you're allowed to say names or whatever, but there's a guy who's got a channel who does things on astrotheology and the Bible, the Quran, all of those ancient writings, and that whole idea of like when you just said Ragnarok, you just conjured an image up in my mind of the serpent bringing 3 or 1/3 of the stars to the earth with it, right? And it just like, I don't know, the deeper I look into other subjects and just other things that seemingly don't have really much correlation to the things I think about in general, the more I find it tied to Michaela specifically, because she's done so much more analysis of her own journey than I have. I've just been kind of a passenger until we up until the 2 years that we've shared together. I've never felt safe in my life. So it's like we've both been now at a point where we're like, holy fuck, like what the actual fuck is going on in this world?
Process.
And there's so much right there in front of you that seems to point to some unexpressible, unfathomable truth that you just know, you know what I mean? And I don't know, like I hear Nick when he talks about, like staring into the abyss or crossing the abyss and stuff like that. It's like, I don't know, man. Like it seems like there's something that just links everything all together. And if you start to look, you'll see those connections, not just but predominantly in your life. And I feel like the things that we find that connect are indications that the journey there is what it's meant to be, or, I don't know.
I always get this, like, from the encircling Midgard, circling Midgard or whatever, gave me this sense that, like, the dark, like, it is almost like the void, or, like, I don't know if that's where, like, Leviathan is, or, like, the waters. I can't remember exactly the lore of it or whatever, but, like, when it came to Kenan or whatever, I really largely felt like there was, like, the void or whatever was, like, where this stuff came from kind of thing. Like, some, like, grand empty darkness that was associated with, like, these, I don't know, the darker things of it.
The serpents are often associated with sort of that sea of darkness, like they were talking about in the Midgard mythology of Jormungandr. But also, when you're talking about ancient Greece and talking about, all these serpents there, it's like it's this ancient enemy type thing. So you've got the Oracle at Delphi having the massive python that was killed by Apollo, and then that python produced visions for people that became this, future sight. So there's,
Do you think that?
oftentimes, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, there's oftentimes this idea of, these visions and stuff coming from this place of void. And so, the breaking of the tail with the mouth, it sort of like breaks the dome of heaven, right? And so on the other side of that would be this.
Yeah.
Do you think the enmity that you described there with the serpent, do you think that's genuine, or is that because I mean, like I get a sense of there being an idea that the serpent sometimes is communicated knowledge and wisdom and stuff like that too, right?
Right.
And
Well,
like how the serpent was the dragon before, like the first. I don't know if I'm correct, but like my understanding is that before the serpent was supposedly in the Jewish story or whatever the Bible story is, ejected from the Garden of Eden, like they cut its legs off and made it crawl on its belly, right? So I mean, maybe, but I don't even know if that's some created narrative to hide the more real truth, like it's confusing.
Well, the astrotheological significance, I think, hasn't been fully brought out when it comes to the serpent, but a lot of ancient civilizations thought of that big arm of the Milky Way galaxy that shoots over our sky as that serpent. So if you're thinking about this, Jormungandr, that would be like that serpent going across the sky that's sort of keeping us all inside. And then you've got all these tales of, you've got to be wise as serpents. I think that comes after the kind of conflict.
Is that the one that's in Sagittarius?
Yeah, Matt's a Sagittarius, and we learned. I'm pretty sure Sag aligns with the Milky Way.
Well, because what you just said, like you have to be wise as the serpent. If that's the serpent that's in the center of Sagittarius, that's the point at which the archer shoots the sun in that story, and the sun dies and then is resurrected after, right? So I mean, that would make sense, right? If the serpent in some mythologies or whatever is meant to be the conveyor of wisdom, right? Well, if you're going to kill the sun or kill God's son, you're going to, just like the story of Marduk, right? Having the four faces, he was able to see in all directions, and that's how he was able to conquer, right? So, I mean, I don't know. That's kind of maybe off in the weeds, but since I don't know, I just said to Michaela the other day that she should listen to this zodiacal thing, because I have never really looked at that aspect of her story. But when I look at the things that correlate in nature, both in the seasons, in the things that grow or die in the seasons, and then I kind of overlay that over her story and relate it to me and my story, is just another layer of that like hollow fractal thing that you can just be like, well, of course it's like that, because of course it is,
Right. Well, I think there's the idea that maybe this stuff is all sort of working together to teach a lesson would be very serpent energy as well, so maybe that's
100%.
where this comes from.
And it's the year of the snake. And I was wondering how the energy of the year, the transformation would manifest for me this year. And I do feel like it was like our power year or something, like we had like a power moment getting married. And then like now it's like time to move that energy kind of thing, which is really interesting. I wasn't sure how the year of the snake would evolve for me,
It does, like there's, from what I understand at least, I mean, like on a world scale, the year of the snake is when all the big world conflicts have happened. So maybe in the macro micro thing, you've experienced largely a conflict that is kind of bringing resolution at this time. It's still early in the year, but it's almost like this resolution is probably going to bring up a lot of conflicts for you internally, right? So maybe that's what it'll mean. I don't know.
It could be. I mean, if this is a conflict year, it would make sense with all the stuff going down in the world. I mean, we're getting ready to fight each other. So we might see each other on the battlefield, on the borders of Canada.
Yeah, right. If we do, we're sorry.
Yeah. But this has been
No, we're in Alberta, so it won't be a battle.
right. Well, Alberta, kind of wants to, jump off. They don't like Canada. So
Most of us do, and most of us wouldn't even be offended to be the 51st state. So,
well, I see the kind of unlinking of that hydra, unlinking of that serpent going on right now between the United States and Canada, because I think the Canadian government at least realizes how much of a pile of shit they are in. And so the only way to distract people is to say, hey, let's go to war with America.
You know what, man? Like it's gotten to a point where I can't conceive of anybody under the age of 60 actually believing the shit they're rolling out in the Canadian media. And, it's all you got to do is stop and think for 5 seconds. And, but most of Canadians they just don't care, like most people aren't really involved out here. They're saying they need a minimum of 600,000 people. There's already 1.8 million people signed on to the petition. So,
yeah, it's concerning, but I think if this is the test year, I don't see it going on very longer because people are just not going to put up with it. Just like what you're talking about. Not going to do it.
No, and there's so many people. There's so many people that are more engaged in things like like things that you guys talk about on the Occult Rejects that are, because I mean politics and geopolitics are a big thing, but like if that's your be all end all, then I really feel like you said something earlier about teaching a lesson. If you're focused on those distractions of who's fighting who over what policies or what currency, then you're missing the fucking point altogether.
Right.
So, I mean, people like us will experience that test period, I feel like, but it'll be like more of a test period in how we learn to adapt to the system we're kind of operating on the fringes of. And the people that are fully engaged in the lie are going to be the ones that fully have the test and are going to either, I don't know. I don't know.
I think you're onto something because I think Keenan kind of represents that. It's like this upper crust family has this kid that's, maybe they've influenced in some way, or, he bears the spirit of this thing that's ancient within them. And then where does he go? He goes to the fringes. And now the fringes is collapsing in on the normies, basically, because they don't believe any of this stuff is possible.
Well, and there's stuff like that on both sides too, because like I was saying earlier, there's on both sides of my family, there's a lot of ancient shit. And one of the things that brought me to your guys' podcast was the crazy deep dive on the Mormon mafia and stuff like that. My family goes super far back and deep into that, and I've had some crazy experiences through that have also kind of just
kind of align with the energy of like Keenan's family. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. Like some type of, like, the way that I see it is like the energy that operates behind both things, like the malicious energy that like exists in those spaces or something like that is like almost the same.
Right. And Slick's saying right here, it says Leviathan water-based democracy versus Behemoth.
Yeah, I just land-based oligarchy. That's crazy, man. Dude, I really am gonna have to check Slick's channel out. I've never watched, but like I am.
I feel like it just like explains my story. Like he's come to like help us so much, like thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Slick. And thank you. Honestly, I have watched her suffer for the better part of 10 years through this. And, like I like to think of myself before anything as her best friend. And I've never really known how other than to just give her space and be like, yeah, like maybe you should explore that, you know?
Right.
And having somebody who definitely has their thumb on the pulse for, you know, I have, like, when I tell you that I listen to you guys, I mean, like, every day there's probably 3 or 4 hours of your guys' episodes that I'll go through. And, you know, like, I don't understand all of them, but like, I definitely respect all of your standpoints on you know, like, each one of you brings something so unique to the table in terms of interpretation and understanding of the universe around us. And I just feel like Michaela and I definitely connect on all levels with, you know, with all of those viewpoints. So it's super nice to have, you know, both the understanding and the space, because, you know, like, it's impossible for any one person to be somebody's everything, right? So her being able to put this out, have somebody who can offer insight with more experience than what she has available to her in her, like, physical natural sphere is just amazing. So thank you.
I feel right now so much like validated more than anything, right? Like, because for years I was like, this isn't real, like, this doesn't happen to people, like it almost felt like just psychosis, like, you know what I mean? Someone, if you were to just disregard it as something just in your mind or whatever. But then when I think about like the RCMP and I think about all this stuff that we've talked about, and I have, I guess, more of a confidence in my senses that I had back then, because like a lot of my intuitive stuff has come to fruition and I've been able to confirm it or validate it for myself or whatever. But things that, like, why this initiated in my life, like questions along that line, like how it was even possible to have happened to me, stuff like that is like where I'm left questioning. Absolutely. But to me, I was never willing to be like, yeah, it's DID and it's you know what I mean, like family, fucking, like, whatever, you know. But if it was, right,
well, and the island is like Vancouver Island and Victoria especially, it's a very Masonic place, to a point where they actually lay out, there's certain points in the sidewalks where they have emblems in the sidewalk that depict the convergence of specific ley lines within the city. And if you look, there's always Mason buildings that are close to there too, right? So
right. Well, I think with the Masons and the Masonic heritage and all that stuff, it goes back to how they acquired knowledge in the first place. And I think when you get acquired knowledge from like tutelary spirits or like spirits that are supposed to be giving you something, there's a drastic cost that you have to return. And so
100%.
Yeah.
do you think that's why he died? Like, do you think that's why he died?
It's probably part of it. And now his family is dealing with those costs and trying to cover it up, it seems. So you could have a lot of that stuff passing through the lineage, through those Masonic bloodlines. And you can hear it anytime anybody talks about these Masonic bloodlines, you get this high strangeness, paranormal that goes on around them. So I think
100%.
that's something that goes back through the bloodline. One of the things I wanted to point out is the definition for the word symbol, right? And so I think I said this on that episode is, you know, it means thrown together. And so as you're trying to find these symbols and their meaning, what you're going to find is that these associations are then going to be taking a more powerful part in how you move forward, right? Because it's not just thrown together, it's also being used for something. So as these different symbols come up, it's important to, you know, keep it in mind and look out for them, because it's not just going to happen once. And again, like as you see with all these different synchronicities and stuff, there's a pattern, there's a repeating idea there. So, you know, maybe you could take something from this experience and start to use it to build something for your future.
That's incredible.
And what do you mean by that? Actually, I would like to know.
Well, like let's say the numbers, for example, if you're incorporating these numbers into your everyday experiences, let's say like an altar or maybe like a framed picture that has sort of like a collage of these different ideas and events put together with the numbers, you're going to find that you're going to, you know, essentially see more meaning in it later on as you can remind yourself in the present, you know.
Okay.
But
That's
also
interesting.
singing, I think if you try and write a song about this, it would be amazing.
She's definitely like this
Interesting.
girl will sit down for 2 hours and I'll come home from work and she'll be like, I wrote 4 songs and recorded them today.
Nice. Yeah. Because I
Yeah.
think there's a big part of this that is music. And it's the union of number and harmony that is very important when it comes to music. So,
Well,
incorporate-
that's just it too, right? Like music is essentially
not-
it's mathematics.
That's like how I
in vi-
feel about this experience, right? It's like how music is
You stop.
made is how my experience has
Stop
been
crying.
made. Because it is like layers through numbers.
Go
It
away.
seems like.
Go.
But I don't understand how. I guess like maybe my question might be like family involvement. How would that affect me?
well, it just doesn't stop
Headphones
with
died.
the family. It constantly, spreads out. So as these entities or whatever are trying to take their cost, it usually
Oh,
on to other people.
I think we gotta switch. Oh no.
It'll just connect by itself.
Oh,
Sorry, the headphones died.
there you go.
No, I get it.
We have a backup pair or two.
What were you saying?
I was saying as these ideas within these family systems sort of come out, these spiritual essences come out into the surrounding population. It's not something that they can really control. I'm sure this highfalutin family that it comes from would have rather not had this happen, obviously, but there's very little way to stop it after it starts. It's like a chain reaction.
So I got this sense like when Keenan was dying, I was like, because like I've got this like my mind where I was like, oh, these people can transform. Like people are able to transform back into these like entities or like whatever the fuck, right? And I was asking my friend who was like there with him when he was dying, I was like, was he making those noises? Like, was he making his dragon noises and shit like that? And he was like, oh yeah, dude. And so like fully like I knew like he was like going off, like whatever that essence of him. I feel like that's what it is, man, because like being like ancient possessed, those hold weight in before I had this conversation. But now having this conversation, it feels like the perspective has gained a bit larger.
Well, and you mentioned too earlier, Headless, like a correlation between big bloodlines and the whole MK Ultra idea, right? So, and just what you said just now, like, they may have desired some sort of outcome and not been able to mitigate all whatever circumstances would have been extenuating from their exercising their power, like, and there's always shit that you can't control. And I'm sure they would have preferred it to happen in a, sterilized environment kind of thing. But, when you fuck with somebody's shit like that in an MK kind of sense, maybe they just lost control of them and were like, well, I mean, it'll work.
Right. It's like the magical circle idea. You can't keep that circle intact. Eventually, that magical circle is going to become broken. And if you got entities on the hook on the other side, guess what? It's not going well for you.
Well, and from what I understand, right, like if you don't like when you were talking on the first episode in your first reading, how her being spun, I think maybe it was Nick who said, oh, or like direction is 100% like a big thing, right? Like to a degree, right? And the more you look at things like big monuments or the way ceremonies are performed, like it seems to me like you can influence or maneuver with those forces to a degree because the forces kind of like they're part of you, you're part of them, right? But when it comes to like getting a specific outcome from a specific entity, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you don't know like the proper name, the proper time to call them forth, the proper direction to be facing, the proper attire, like it seems like if you're after if specificity is your bag of tricks, then you better make sure you got all the specifics down, or you're never going to be able to control. Whereas if you're willing to just be like, well, I'm going to engage with this force and consequences kind of be damned, and hopefully this is what I get out of it. Well, then, you know, like the intent there, right? Like if you're laser focused on one thing, it seems like, you know, you may get that one thing, but you're, you know, take what you want in life, but pay for it. Your cost is going to be a lot higher. Whereas if you go into it accepting of any kind of outcome and maybe just hopeful of something, then maybe the price isn't quite so high. Maybe.
Look at Scotty. Look at what Scotty's little spell did, you know?
Yeah, no shit. And I tell you, I met that guy. Like there was a group of us together when he came to town, and to kind of give you an idea, Michaela to that whole group was, I mean, I'm telling you, if anybody had ever fucked with her at any point, there'd have been 16 hobos with knives ready to bury anybody. You know what I mean? Like hop on a train and never be seen again. Like she was possibly the most protected person in that city. But at the same time, at like 5'0" and under 100 pounds, if any one of us was doing some bullshit or getting too angry or whatever, she could walk up and be, no, bad, right? But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That kind of went off. Yeah, Scott was, everybody kind of had this feeling of him, right? Like he just didn't belong. And everybody was super confused when she left with him. It was like, what the fuck? Like, that is not our tribe. And, you know, she kind of floated freely, but it was weird, you know? And I'd get, you know, we stayed in touch forever. You know, we've never lost touch. And we'd text and, you know, I'd get messages from her like, you know, every 2 or 3 days or something happened, you know, that was exciting. But every couple of months she'd do a video call, and it was almost like I could feel that there was a special reason that she was calling and she needed to be seen, or it was almost, and like, I don't know, man, this guy would make, like, he would deliberately apply for the same jobs as her and then get injured. And, you know, like there was a lot of, I don't know, man, like just even on a surface level, even if you were a person who didn't believe in magic or whatever, you'd think this guy is doing something to control her, you know, like sorcery.
Inherited trauma alchemy process.
Where did that come from?
Are we?
Oh, I died.
I have to mute every time
We
because
died.
I have to mute every time. I'm sorry, it was me. But no, I muted. Can you hear me?
Oh, you muted yourself.
Yeah.
We thought our
I got
headphones died.
I got the street out there, so it's kind of hard to hear sometimes.
Oh fuck!
Okay, hang on. We'll turn the Bluetooth on so you don't get an echo.
All right.
I think.
Check. Okay, now we hear you.
So when it comes to Slick, he talks about a lot the placenta as being this divine twin. And that's the way it was sort of pictured back in ancient Egypt, is this placental divine twin would sacrifice itself for you so that you could be born. And, you know, this could be where a lot of the Jesus concepts come from, but it's like this spiritual twin, and they would take it to this specific road and then bury the placenta as sort of a way of I think it's the Road of Kings. And that at this place, it was like honoring that placental sacrifice for you. And that would be the original sort of twin flame idea, is that this twin of you, you know, sacrifices itself to feed you so that you can be born, but it still sort of stays around as a spirit for the rest of life.
When Keenan died,
There's a
I
lot of-
felt so strongly that he like sacrificed himself for me. Like there was, because if he was under fire like from like all angles and was actually like a victimized individual, then like I had a sense of feeling bad for him, you know, like.
Sorry, we gotta. Can I ask you really quick about that story that you just described of the placenta being the twin flame concept? So
like immediately that brought to my mind the whole, all of the struggles of like the twins in the biblical stories, like Jacob and Esau and like Cain and Abel and stuff like that. Is that possibly, is the story you just described much older, and is the resulting stories that we have from like the Bible and any other spiritual text, is that like an inversion of that?
It's, yeah, there is that inversive angle as well, but you know, in the same sense that they preserve that knowledge, there's also the inversion of it. So in a lot of the cases where these societies that, you know, worship and honor the placenta, you've got this different way of viewing time, different way of seeing the world. It's more cyclical versus the linear form that they talk about with, you know, Jesus and eschaton and all the end of time stuff. So
Yeah.
there is that inversion there. But at the same time, you know, it still preserves somewhat of a little bit of that knowledge there. And I think that if, you know, people understood that this is where the you know, sacrificed for your sins or sacrificed for you to come into existence, there's that spiritual concept as well. So you've got these twins all over the place. You've got Gemini, you've got Prometheus and Epimetheus, you've got, you know, Jacob and Esau, and all these other ideas that sort of play into that same kind of tension between that duality. And so
You know
the
what?
spiritual twin is central to that.
And what you just said there too, like with the, like, because that, like, there must be something there in our journey with like, I don't want to say the twin flame thing, just because like both of us has kind of rejected that, but what you say about the placenta thing, right? And how you tie it to Gemini, because this is something crazy. My sister is a Gemini, and my sister and Michaela share the same, my sister's first name is Michaela's middle name. And it just seems like there's something, when you said a lesson a while ago, it just seems like, I heard once that there was this author who wrote this book, he published this book, and then all these things started happening to him from the book, right? And he couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on. He freaked out, lost his shit. He ended up going to a priest, and he described his story. And the priest said, well, you're describing, I can't remember what book of the Bible it was, but he's like, well, your novel is basically a recreation of this. And you've brought this into, you know, like you've brought this into existence by manifesting it in the story, and all of these things are happening to you in your life, right? But it just seems like every time I'm shown a new aspect from which to look at this journey and this story, it just seems like there is another overlay of truth. And when she, you know, like her intent when she got her story written down was like, I just feel like there's other people who might be going through this, and I feel like I'm at a point where I've worked this through, that I might be able to give somebody some guidance, but I'm not 100% sure on what to say or how to reach them, right? It's like every time somebody like yourself brings like, well, this is this and this is that, or when Slick brings up, you know, his comments, I'm just like, holy fuck, I never even thought about it that way. But it's not like, it doesn't change the story. It doesn't change the way to look at it. It's just like, no, this is true. There's something to this. There's something that is, because this isn't.
That's
like,
why it's important to connect.
Yeah.
I feel like I've gotten to a point myself where like I was like experiencing like,
but
no
like
confidence.
it's not an original story, is what I'm trying to drive at. Like it's a story that's older than, like this. It seems like whatever journey or battle spiritually that you've been engaged in for the last 10 years seems to be, there's a facet of it that's kind of encoded in all the things that I'm learning about on the side. And it's just like, holy fuck, when we say the holofractal nature of the universe that we've been able to kind of observe in our life and stuff like that, it's, well, how do you even deny it with all these things,
Right. I think that's the thing, is like there's an ancient component to all of these stories because it's all sort of one thing. And being able to, go backwards or forwards in time with these associations is how we make these symbols useful, So keeping all that ancient knowledge and then bringing that forward is going to produce a more powerful reflection. And I think this whole thing is about duality and reflection, I think.
Yeah, like the term mirror immediately is what comes to mind, right?
Right, and that's why I went with the black and red dragon saga, is because there is that duality between the black and the red, you know.
And it's yeah, totally. And I like Keenan's whole like black, like void, like all that, you know, the color also associates with that. Red femininity. That's what that, I don't know what else, I don't know. I always got this like sense that like, I don't know if the word infernal, if it's infernal, but there was like these infernal spirits like that were a part of this, right? I genuinely like feel like I don't know how else to feel about my experience, because like I can demystify, I can rap with you, I can learn more, I can like all this, but then I genuinely still have that question, like what was this all meant for? Like what purpose does all this ancient relativity magic, like it's all relative, it's all old as shit, older and probably not, like it's ageless in a sense. Like how does that relate to the human experience? Like why is that embedded in this? Like what is that purpose? Like,
Well, if everything comes from number and all of these things are sort of carried over on these different waves, then maybe the story's not over yet, you know. And by understanding which wave is coming next, you can actually better navigate what
You
might
just
be
gave me
coming.
goosebumps, dude.
But I mean, I think that it's an important story to tell, because I feel like there's a deep seed of something very ancient here, and having the ability to, you know, get it out there, have some catharsis, and then keeping that in mind as you move forward is going to be a very important part of this journey.
and that's why I find like it's almost like the ancient memories of like Lemuria being like a higher vibrational planet thing. I find that's really interesting in contrast. It's like I've been shown like how the ancient evil operates, but then also I've been shown how the ancient benevolent also like operates in a way too. And I feel like it's like
That's that duality again that you keep saying.
well, yeah.
But it almost, you know what I get from that though? Like from, sorry to cut you off, but
I wasn't talking.
when you express, like you say the duality, but every bit of, and maybe I might be biased, right? But every time she expresses the same components, the language that she doesn't pin it down to to like the same term, duality, but the feeling that I get is almost always a unification of those two seemingly opposing things, right? Like the duality, right? Where instead of being opposing systems or two opposing forces, they're like complementary components of a singular force, where it's like the infinite is contained in a finite space kind of thing, you know?
Right.
And
Right.
and it's there's honestly at the core of it, the thing that I feel is that unification of sacred masculine and sacred feminine to kind of show the all, you know, like there's all kinds of anecdotal things that I can toss out there kind of thing to show that, right? But like I have two kids from previous marriage, and you know, I love my boys, but when I think of us having a family together, for example, like the thing that I think of is, you know, it's not us having a child, it's that unification of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine in its most high manifestation and desire, where, you know, like, so when you say like there's important things in this ancient thing, I'm just like, well, what's the most important thing? You know, like children, you know, love, that expression of whatever it is that caused us to exist and be here, you know? I don't know how else to say it.
Right. Well, I think it's an important factor because let's face it, if you can pass this story along to future generations and give them a source of strength in their own lives, you know, the journey's met its purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I almost felt like this was only for me for a while in a way. But like I've seen other people, like they're called like twin soul poets. I resonated with her story on YouTube that she like how she found her twin, because she said like she got these like downloads or whatever, and then like she turned around and on this bench there was like this plaque that had like words written on it about like your lover is coming or whatever, that gave her that sense, right? So I know that experience is with other, like I've through that one instance, I know that the experience of everything in your mind and then the universe, like that outside world speaking back to you so strongly and like giving you these like strong thoughts, like back and forth, that kind of like negative, like the feedback loop of it all, like kind of thing.
422. 422 makes 8, the Lemniscate.
And 8 is my birthday,
which is also the analemma, right? And this year being the transition, right? Like, and us just coming to the realization of that, you know. And there's an indication there in the analemma and what you just said. I can't remember the word because I'm not good, but there's
analemma is like this, and the Lemniscate is like this.
Right. So but it's basically the same symbol of completion kind of thing, right? Where I don't know, maybe I'm off the mark on that.
Well, I like it because it's a closed system that has movement, right? Like that's like what it gives me, is like that's how I relate to my experience, is like God or whatever is like a closed system that moves. Like I said, the living spirit was like the way that I described it coming to me yesterday in the backyard, because I genuinely feel like and when I said like I used to want to be like a twin flame influencer or whatever, like after I met Nanari, like I was like, my story is powerful, like I should share it. But I was like in the kind of like delusion of all of it back then. And I would have perpetrated in that delusion, giving people false light, you know? And like, so I'm grateful that this is the space that I've come to, you know, because it's a long journey really to like, kind of like demystify. And I think my process has been kind of hard to demystify because I felt like it was so real. And I would hope that if someone who feels like their shit that they're going through like is so real, that they like hear this and they like, I don't know how to help someone when they're in the midst of it though. Like I literally don't. But maybe to just hear this story, like, man, that shit's crazy. That shit's happening to me right now. I can't see the way out, but I heard that story. Maybe there's a way out. Like, I don't know how it would help someone, but.
Well, that would obviously help, because once they're in it, it feels like there's no escape, you know, but at the same time there is, and you can tell people that.
Well, and people do things at different stages, right? Like she wasn't, while she was knee deep in the experience, she wasn't in any position where if somebody had presented her like, hey, you're going through this right now. But in the 6 years after, when she was with Scott, if somebody had previously reached out and put something out and had shared an experience similar and she'd have been able to connect to, she would have broken free of all of those things that caused her to be, because like, again, I agree with her, you know, like there was something. I have a hard time when I look at the Keenan situation, picking any time where I could see, yeah, he was definitely doing this ceremony or he definitely had this in a thing, which is why I kind of agree with what you said, where, you know, it could have been his family manipulating or whatever. But Scott was 100% consciously doing everything he could to keep her. It was like she was his source of power for 6 years. So I like, but you know, I mean, not everybody.
I do want to say though, because like what was said was like, you said something about like not getting out, like there's no way out. Like I don't know why that's all I can remember. What about with Keenan? Like there was an energy with him when he passed away there was no way out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what that is. I do think that if you play the wrong cards, I don't know. Like,
Take what you want in life, but pay for it.
well, sure, right? Like, but that would be, there is no way out when you partake in that.
Right.
Well,
I
but
think
how did
the drugs, particularly in this case, seem like that was sort of the trap, is because
well,
like,
that's kind of what I was gonna say, because like I mean, when it comes to a lot of that stuff, like if you're maybe I'm understanding this wrong, but like when it comes to certain elements of like magic, if you're meant to be the sacrifice, you're definitely not going to be the beneficiary of the ceremony or any of the powers that are invoked therefrom, right?
Well, that's why I wonder if I was supposed to show up on 420 and die, dude. Like, I wonder if that was my fucking other timeline path, was to be like the fair maiden that gets slaughtered to the fucking. That's what I literally think Michael saved me.
Well, that's kind of what I was driving at too, was that if you're not engaged consciously in those things, how much are you going to suffer, like beyond the obvious energetic, whatever, like numbers, probability, if I move this molecule this way, this is going to happen kind of repercussions? Are you going to suffer beyond, like, because somebody who engages consciously in something like that with the negative intention or the intention to take away somebody else's ability to exercise their free will, they're going to have a whole other set of consequences that they experience beyond the obvious physical, like, ramifications in this plane, on this realm, right? So I wonder, like, if the only reason that you're here to tell the tale is because you were, you were,
it's a tale to tell,
like you said in the
saved.
beginning, like you slept on your Bible, but you'd never cracked the cover. So when it comes to these things that were at play, you were
I'm not
totally
like a born
oblivious.
again Christian, but I was like actually saved or something. Like, I don't know how to say it.
I don't know.
well, I mean, it could go into this idea of your own kind of connection to that placental type energy, that spirit that was kind of looking out for you. Maybe that was the thing that was behind you and you were crying out to the sky. That could be a part of
feel, oh
Maybe-
my god.
Maybe that was a maybe instead of that being the opening and the beginning to that experience, when you cried out to the sky with good intention, because you weren't crying out to the sky being like, fuck you, God, or whoever you are. You were like,
Help.
please,
Yeah,
I'm
like,
supplicating, I am bending to your will.
yeah.
Please, something benevolent come. And maybe something benevolent came and was meant to be a warning to the things that were coming. But because of the place you were in, like temporally, like where you were in your lifestyle and shit, you were just like, you had that feeling of a presence, even though you felt like you wanted to live that. When the actual presence is there, you get that philo erection, that cats get, where you're like, holy fuck, what the fuck? And you're like, nope, I'm out of here.
Right. Well, it could have to do with where you were at in your life at the time too. Like, it might have.
I've never encountered spirits in my life too, right? Like, I'd never seen a ghost or like any of that shit. So I think that was like a big reason that I wouldn't have like even wanted out. Just nope, hard nope.
Maybe the male come to Jesus moment should be called the person's come to Andromeda moment for the female race.
That's fuck, dude. That is profound.
And Perseus and Andromeda had to do with that giant sea monster too.
Yeah,
I feel like there's
Monster.
within the word Andromeda, I feel that for some reason.
well, and
like,
that's the whole chaos and order thing, right? Where people perceive, or I feel like we've been kind of duped in perceiving the idea of darkness and chaos as this bad thing, but like the darkness and chaos is where the order is created, I think, from the sacred feminine, where there's like this chaotic thing that the feminine is able to order into something that can manifest physically, spiritually, like in the whole complex, like in every species, like there's just molecules and matter, and then all of a sudden something comes forth from the placenta, right? I don't know, man.
Well, I got this little illustration that I have here. That let me see if I can pull it up. Okay, and where's my Firefox? And let me see. Present image file. Open. And so right here, I think this is a far more accurate representation of sort of the cycles we go through. And it's kind of eliminating the idea of good and bad and replacing
Huh.
it with this order and chaos idea. So when your order is extremely strong and you end up having to expend more energy to maintain it, causing it to become weak, causing it to fall into chaos. And then once that chaos becomes so powerful, something else has to take control. Right. And so it's this
Otherwise, yeah,
constant
right.
cycle.
Yeah, totally.
It's almost like a base level self-preservation of like the absolute base form of whatever energy drives everything. Cause like it's like at that bottom chaos level, it's like if everything disintegrates, then it can't come back to that order and it can't maintain that cycle.
Right. But understanding this gives you a lot better perspective when it comes to it than the standard, well, everything's either good or bad. Well, it's good or
100%.
bad for a lot of different people, but at the same time, is it causing chaos? Is it causing order? What's happening here? And a lot of times, the people in power like to use chaos as a means of gaining a more strong power, right? So, all of these things are going on at the same time, and the more aware of it we are, the more we can sort of navigate those waters.
Well, and it seems wouldn't like I don't know, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but the chaos gives people or the people in control or the forces in control the opportunity to kind of decide what the order is, right? Because I mean, and like in the chaos, it's easier for people to kind of submit to what the people or the forces that be decide what is the good and the evil, right? And that's all a matter of, like what's good for the fox isn't good for the mouse kind of thing, right? So that whole that illustration, like yeah, you're right. Like there is no
But that also,
necessarily across the board good and evil. There's what's convenient to one's journey against what's inconvenient to another's journey.
it
Right.
really helps to like chill me out. You know what I mean? Like in a way, it's like demystifies the whole like negative experience that I had in a way too. Like it transmutes it or something into something that's like more tangible and a little bit easier to just live with. Because like the lens of looking at it through like just like a total distraught like lens, just like it's negative.
Well, just like you guys had Gordon White on the other day, right? And what he was saying near the end, how somebody had said something, well, maybe if colonization hadn't happened, and he said, well, yeah, it was probably wrong for that to happen, but then we wouldn't be alchemizing right now what we are in the grand scheme of things. And what you said earlier about us being able to pass this down to future generations, if we weren't alchemizing this now, we wouldn't have that higher, and if we're all kind of aimed to that higher, I guess the top of the hierarchy of the most good kind of thing that we can do or be or enact, then it makes sense, like, yeah, you have to kind of go through this so that the next step starts off better, right? And I don't know if I'm doing a good job of articulating what I'm thinking.
No, you're saying it perfectly. I think that's the idea is as you're going through this alchemy process, you make it easier for other people in the future to gain some personal strength from their own difficult situations.
Yeah, exactly. That's yeah. Wow, man.
That's
it like
the hope.
feels really good. It feels really benevolent, like to me, like whatever thing that I felt like saved me or whatever is like that energy. I swear, it's like, I don't know, the same energy.
But you know what? I think if you look really, the energy that saved you was yours, because all of those things, like all of the quote unquote coincidences and all of the correlations of numbers, dates, names, all of those things, I think were only signs. They weren't actually, because if you look at like lifestyle wise, you know, Michael was a fucking awesome dude, but he never did really anything to like, other than be there and be different than what the situation was. He never enacted anything to save you from any bad situation or to change how you were living.
That's
he was just
the beauty of it. He was just kind of a dumb guy.
he was more, that's what I mean. Like when you say I was saved, it's like Jesus says in the Bible, you know, by your own faith you were healed, right? And although all those signs were there, like if you didn't already have that connection to source just by virtue of who you are, you never would have.
That's why I feel like this concept of alchemy, like it just makes my body like light up. Like it makes me feel like that's exactly like, sorry, that's like exactly like kind of like what it is, you know, for, you know, it sounds very egomaniacal. I can't get over the fact how insane because when I was in those times of like being my own God and like having this sort of sense of being like, I can make spiders manifest out of thin air and I can make, you know what I mean? Like trying to like make crazy shit happen just with my own will that of like a negative nature. This to me feels like alchemizing your own nature then is naturally benevolent to others. To me, it just feels like the point of my whole experience, really, you know? And somehow like the twin flame thing is like a lot of people in those circles, they'll talk about how the idea of it is to just come back to yourself. Like the idea of it is like that you don't actually have a twin soul. You're your twin soul.
Or more so that like everything is all one and you're just like one aspect of the whole fractal, right? And just like, you know, finding that recognition mirrored in somebody else is just like, in one way, it's the whole macrocosm, microcosm.
Well, I had the fake version. Like I felt so ecstatic meeting Keenan, but then I actually just genuinely feel you and me mirror each other, like genuinely mirror each other in life. Like what I have found out recently is that it's because I believe it's embedded in creation. I don't think anything that Keenan did to me, it was on drugs, it was in my mind, it was in, you know what I mean? Like it was all in a space that is non-physical.
But it was baked into the recipe.
No, but the thing is the things that were the physical signs along the way, I believe were like God or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like the more benevolent energy was embedded in the signs. And I think it's because like the numbers and how we're saying like creation manifests out of numbers or whatever. I do think like those numbers don't lie, like kind of thing. And no matter what Keenan tried to do, no matter what anyone can like try to do with their will and stuff like that, it always like lands where it's meant to, no matter what.
Well, and that's that again, like why I said before, like how much of the consequences are you meant to suffer because you were more of a sacrifice to that whole process. And maybe Keenan was also to, you know, also because, you know, even the way his friend, like, yeah, he was, you know, he did these shitty things, but everybody that I know that has spoke of him, they'll speak of some of his deeds as being not maybe the greatest, but they always speak with him of like the deepest love for him, you know?
Who?
Keenan, like the people that knew and loved him, even though they recognized he was dark and shitty, they loved him. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
You know, a lot of people with that dark passenger are truly beloved by the people around them, even though, you know, that dark passenger takes over the wheel from time to time. So there is that aspect too.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a funhouse mirror instead of just a normal reflection.
It's sad.
Like that, and that actually what you just said kind of gives, like, when it kind of it's the appropriate trolling clown on the twin flame aspect of, like, you know, like having that mirror image, because really it's not a mirror image, it's a clown world mirror. Right. And, you know, a lot of crap went into that, and it's important to understand that all these people should have at least a little bit of understanding so that they can stop being such a funhouse mirror. You know, it's like they don't feel like anybody gets them, and in the process they end up, you know, going more extreme than even the funhouse mirror would allow. But I think this was a great episode. I had a lot of fun with you guys. It's great to know that I've got fans out there who appreciate my stuff, and that I'm making a difference for them, because that's my goal too, you know. And I think
maybe instead of thinking of yourself like a god because of all this, you think of yourself as a symbol, you know, and being that symbol of these thrown together events will help somebody else along their way as well. So
Interesting.
be the signpost, you know?
Totally.
Interesting.
Totally.
Thank you.
No one can show you the way, but I can point to a sign.
Right. Right. So thanks everybody for joining. Slick, Nick, Symbolic Studies. Thank everybody for coming by. And this has been an episode of Headless Giant Podcast. We're in the mailbag. This is Michaela, everybody. This is the episode we just did, number 7, with the Black and Red Dragon Saga. So if you want to go back and check that out, you can see a little bit more of it. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you.